Out of the gates and ready to go. Outkick 360 is underway. Hutton and Withrow with you. Wednesday edition, jam-packed with news and notes across NFL free agency. Of course, March Madness and the bracket and much more. Looking forward to Mike Golick joining us in 20 minutes, formerly of Mike and Mike, and now with DraftKings. Bobby Carpenter will be with us for his weekly visit in hour number 2. Plus, Shannon Terry and Grant Firking of On 3 in studio to discuss Shannon's take on the fact he believes we're going to have federal legislation sooner rather than later down the path for name, image, likeness, and we'll discuss Texas A&M defying the NCAA quote-unquote guidelines. That's all to come. But, Chad, good afternoon, and we have heard from Aaron Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers runs the world. We just live in it, and that is the story of the day. Aaron
Rodgers says he wants to play for the New York Jets, and he's waiting on the Packers to get the deal done with New York. Here is Rodgers earlier today on the Pat McAfee Show.
I was able to admit at that point, really on that Tuesday, I wanted to play. And then it was, how is my body feeling? Is it going to be able to hold up? So at this point, as I sit here, I think since Friday, I made it clear that my intention was to play, and my intention was to play for the New York Jets.
Okay.
And I haven't been holding anything up at this point. It's been compensation that the Packers are trying to get.
And the compensation is interesting. We'll get to that in a moment. But, Chad, what was your biggest takeaway from what Rodgers did by saying we're not here to declare anything. This has already been decided, and I need to clear some things up that floating out there. Like the wish list, he says he didn't make any demands. Rossini said it was a wish list. He didn't call it a demand when in regards to the Packers who are free agents that he would like to join him in New York, namely Alan Lazard, who's currently a New York Jet. But he also pointed directly at Green Bay and said, they don't want me. They made the decision that they're moving on.
I think that it was a let me back it up a little bit.
Yeah.
There's two parts of this for me. One I will get to with the fact that Aaron Rodgers broke this story. Just blows my mind. Like, this was kept secret, quiet for the most part. There were some reports about
Trey Wingo
hearing it's going to happen. Trey Wingo had that out there, but for the most part, kept it pretty close to the vest at everyone, and that he was allowed to go on Pat McAfee show and break his own news, which does surprise me. And that he can just come out and say, I want to be a Jet, and the Packers need to move it along, basically.
Well,
that it's their problem now, and it's about their compensation, and he is trying to get them to speed the process up.
It's an interesting way to go about this from Rodgers' perspective, because the Jets are facing the most pressure. The Packers can execute the $58 million roster bonus on Rodgers' contract as late as September 1st. So the Packers can sit back and say, you're not going to be in the building. You want to be traded. We're moving on to Jordan Love. And we have until September 1st to make a move with you on the roster where that $58 million is going to count against us. It's not going to count today at 4 p.m. Eastern like a lot of contracts lock in for. So now the Jets are up against it because the Packers want multiple first-round picks, and the Jets are saying we don't want to give you multiple first-round picks because we don't know if Rodgers is going to play multiple seasons after 2023. So the compensation should add up for 2023, plus down the road, if he plays, we can trade other things and other picks down the road, not for 2023-24. That's what's interesting. The Jets now are back against the wall because their only option, best option, is Aaron Rodgers for where they want to be, which is in the postseason. After that, the drop-off is significant now. And by Rodgers doing this and pointing the finger back at Green Bay, there is no rush needed from Green Bay's front office because they hold the cards here for what they're going to demand. The issue is, do you want something in return or not? And if you want something by the draft, you need to make a move well before September 1st in order for that to go down.
The Jets had a great tweet also right after Rodgers said this on Pat McAfee's show, where it's the Leo in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yes.
seeing himself, on the TV with the Jets hat on is great, and all the eyeballs, and then mentioned Pat McAfee. But what Rodgers is saying also, it kind of makes me laugh because it's really just in the eye of the beholder. He's saying the holdup is the compensation on the Packers' end, and basically I want them to hurry up and move it along. Well, yeah, he's saying that because he's made the decision. He is now a member of the New York Jets. The Packers are just over there saying the holdup is on the Jets not giving us what we want. The moment they give us exactly what we want and agree to it, you are a Jet, and we're fine, and we're getting everything we want. So it's just on which side of this you look at it, right? So Rodgers, because he's going to be a Jet, that's going to be his new team. He's siding with his new team saying Packers need to get off square one and decide the compensation they're asking for isn't going to work and just lower that asking price and make a deal happen.
But,
well, the Packers are sitting there saying, no.
Yeah.
We have our price. We have you under contract. The holdup is them.
Yeah, if you want to play for the Jets, tell them to trade for you.
Tell Jets, Jets that it's going to be first-round pick 1, 2, 3, or however many it's going to be, and then they can have their beloved Aaron Rodgers.
And now think about Jets fans and the vitriol if they can't get this deal done now.
They'll get it done. I mean, if worse comes to worse, they're just going to give whatever absurd asking price the Packers are asking for right now. Yeah.
Does Woody Johnson come over the top and get it done? Or do you want the trade to
they're still negotiating now, but I just think now that it's out there, Hutton, I do think there's a sense that the Packers could just sit back knowing the Jets have to get him. So they'll just give whatever they're asking.
But both sides of the negotiation have known this since last week, according to Rodgers.
Yeah, and they still can't come up with an agreement.
Right. And the Green Bay is holding them to their options, which is Rodgers or bust. And here's the price tag. We can wait as long as we want on this. And, by the way, we don't see eye to eye with Rodgers right now, but we're trying to make it seem like everything's cool. Rodgers is trying to make it seem like everything's cool with the Green Bay fan base, where he says, well, things in, but we'll be back. Love you. Again, it's the ongoing offseason saga of Aaron Rodgers. And
it's going to continue every offseason
as
long as he continues to play.
Mike Florio tweeting out that the media lives rent-free in Aaron Rodgers' head could not be more inaccurate. It's the other way around, bro. Everyone's talking about Rodgers, and Rodgers isn't talking to anyone all week. Doesn't even talk to his family. And we're constantly on Aaron Rodgers' watch as we get ready for the start of free agency and all the trades and all the movement. If he's going to play in Green Bay, if he's not. That has been the saga every single year. Very cyclical. It'll be the saga again next year for New York, not Green Bay. And it'll be Florio that's thinking about Rodgers, not the other way around. He did the screenshot. Adam Schefter confirms, which is really funny, on a screenshot where he's reaching out to Rodgers, and you see the response. Lose my number. Good try, though, on the reporting from Schefter regarding the Rodgers saga here. Great response.
It's terrific. And the media part of this, okay? You brought up Florio.
Yeah.
I said this the last couple days. I'm shocked that Aaron Rodgers was allowed, or Aaron Rodgers just played this thing out so brilliantly that he was able to break news in front of 500,000 people watching on YouTube with Pat McAfee when he made this announcement, and that he was allowed to break it. And not one newsmaker in the NFL had concrete, Aaron Rodgers decided he is playing. He will be a New York Jet. They just had to finalize the deal. We didn't get any concrete, firm report until Aaron Rodgers said it. Hutton, that's amazing to me when you consider two NFL franchises are on either side of this. Mm-hmm. With all of their people knowing, the principal people that are involved in this, trying to work out a deal, none of them broke it with any news outlet. None of them leaked it. No one said a word. And this thing stayed quiet for Aaron Rodgers to go on Pat McAfee.
And I said yesterday,
and break the story.
I believe the reports that he had not talked with either team recently.
Yeah. Now,
and I think he said today.
Well, he said he talked to him on Friday.
Yeah, he talked on Friday about what was going to be if he wanted to play or not, but not the compensation versus whatever he's going to sign for in New York. I think from that end, New York wants to talk to him and find out if he's going to play multiple seasons. What's the intention here? It'll be the same, which is going to be year to year now. He loves this. He loves
I also
this
think he
attention.
could play another 3 years.
Oh, absolutely.
He's 39. I mean, he's 6 years younger than Tom Brady.
So
I think he could play another 2 to 3 years with the Jets. I don't think it's a 1 year thing.
well, it's annual for him because this is the ongoing.
It's year to year, but I believe it'll be more like 3 years, even though each offseason will feel like it might be the last.
So he's down the Brett Favre path. You know, we're one move away from him being in Minnesota.
His mentor.
Him being in Minnesota. And how about this? When I came out of the darkness, something changed. Aaron Rodgers says, I went into darkness 90% retiring, 10% playing. And when he came out, he wanted to be a New York Jet. He wanted to play for the Jets. What are the odds that he comes out of the darkness retreat and it's the one team that wants him? Doesn't have to be Chicago or Minnesota or Green Bay or any others. It just happens to be the team that wants you to play for them. Wow. I mean, this is unbelievable.
Mind-blowing
The darkness
stuff.
retreat, he has this visual, this realization that, you know what, I'm a New York Jet. And while you're gone for those 3 days, 2 days, whatever it was, he didn't make it 4. The Jets were already inquired about him.
It's as
Crazy.
if he went in the darkness.
Yeah, it's like he knew.
He saw the darkness. He said, retirement. Retirement is equal to darkness for me. So I went into the darkness of the retirement, 90% sure.
90%.
And in 24 hours in, however long it was, maybe he said, I'm starting to see something. It's green, but it's not quite Packers green and gold. It's green and white that I'm seeing, even though I'm completely in the dark. And that green and white, ladies and gentlemen, turned out to be New York Jets green and white.
Gang
and
green.
it's because of that vision that I came out and I said, I will play. And then last Friday, I informed the Packers, it is my intention to play and to play for the New York Jets. So make this thing happen. And Packers, get to work. You need to get a move on this because I'm ready to get this thing done and be a New York Jet. It truly is Aaron Rodgers' world. Mike Florio saying that he's in the media's in his head. Totally agree, Hutton. It's the opposite way around with that guy. He is in everyone's head at this point, and he's calling his own shots. And now the drama begins. If we thought this was drama with a darkness retreat mixed with the will he, won't he play, now we get to sit and wait until a deal is finalized, which it will be eventually, even if it's the Jets totally caving to whatever the Packers want. He will be in New York. And we get to have a season of football of Aaron Rodgers with a really good Jets roster, young roster around him. This is going to be fun.
And
regardless of what happens, good or bad, this is going to be fun.
And it will be, it's very predictable how this is going to go. Rodgers will have them in contention, and the media will hate it because it's Aaron Rodgers. And he'll go on weekly with McAfee and discuss all of it. Chad?
He's going to start talking about how he's healthier because he didn't take the vaccination. And then that's just going to blow Mike Florio's mind and everyone. I'm not voting for him for MVP this year after he dared to make that statement.
Or he'll throw a pick.
Guys, my right arm is just real loose. It's probably because I didn't get a shot in that arm.
Yeah.
He's just going to rile up the media even more with talk like that.
He'll lose week 1, and it'll be because he was distracted by the New York media, and he's not in Green Bay anymore.
Yeah.
That'll be the excuse.
He'll have jokes like that, too.
Yeah.
Guys, there's too many cameras in here. I can't focus anymore.
From Green Bay to Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield is competing for the starting job in Tampa Bay with the Buccaneers. And in 45 minutes, Lamar Jackson can answer calls and negotiate, because he represents himself, with any team in the NFL. So now that's the next big storyline to come is who's actually going to inquire about Lamar Jackson other than Baltimore. It's a 1-year contract, by the way, for Baker in Tampa. And the one requirement he was looking for was an opportunity to start, an opportunity to compete in camp. Tampa will give him that 1 year, $8.5 million, and he'll be competing currently with Kyle Trask. Hit us up with your thoughts at Outkick 360. Another signing I should mention, Juju Smith-Schuster to the New England Patriots. Jacoby Myers, of course, ends up in Las Vegas, and the Raiders contract for Jacoby Myers, 3 years, $33 million, $21 million guaranteed. The Juju Smith-Schuster contract, 3 years, $33 million, $22 million guaranteed. So they gave him another $1 million more, and the contract's identical to what Myers left for that the Patriots didn't match. They give it to Juju Smith-Schuster. They've also been calling about Jerry Jeudy and Hopkins, DeAndre Hopkins, New England, according to reports.
Patriots going big.
Coming up, Mike Golick joins the show. We'll continue the Aaron Rodgers discussion, get his take on how free agency gets started officially today in about 45 minutes. And we will also dive in some with the draft. Mike Golick next on Outkick 360.
Latest edition of the Trey Wallace Podcast, powered by Outkick.com. Happy to be joined by Auburn head basketball coach Bruce Pearl. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great, Trey. How are you doing?
I am good. Thanks for taking the time. I know things are busy. You're getting prepared for the NCAA tournament, and what a wild time. Walk me through yesterday, what that was like on Selection Sunday, just getting that announcement, finding out, okay, we're in the NCAA tournament again, and the players' reactions to it.
Yeah, Trey, it never gets old. You know, that one shining moment really means something. You know what? And it's hard to get in. I mean, there are so many good teams that had great records that just did not get in. I think the body of work is obviously, to me, your last games are as important as your first games. And they're judging teams based on the entire season, which worked out really well for us because we played 6 teams in the non-conference that were in the NCAA tournament and beat 3 of them. We played 3 true road games in the non-conference against Power 5 schools. No other Power 5 school, did that. We won some good ones, but even the ones we lost, like at Texas A&M or at Tennessee or at Alabama, we're all really close. And so you got rewarded for not getting blown out, for going on the road, and you really get rewarded for winning, but you get rewarded for being in the games too. So anyways, the kids were excited, and obviously, the 8-9 game is going to be a tough game because Iowa's a really good team.
Hey, how much goes into that? When you guys are scheduling opponents and you look at the way that college basketball is now, they want you to go out there and they want you to take those chances. When it comes to the strength of schedule and down the road and how it helps out teams come March, when they're vying for a tournament, how much time and preparation do you put in to something like that to making sure, okay, we need to get at least 2 or 3. We try in the non-conference, but you know how tough the SEC is, but it just feels that strength of schedule is such a big component.
It is. I mean, I think, and they've been consistent with that. And so you got to put your team at risk. You got to take them on the road. You got to play good teams on neutral sites. And then, we've always tried to schedule like mid-majors that could win their league, that we're going to have, really good seasons, that had good culture. It's dangerous because what happens is if you get beat by one of them, it also can devastate your math. But it's all about risk reward, and you got to have enough confidence in your team. But I do think the strength of schedule, I think the committee has consistently rewarded people that have played tough schedules.
A lot of people find this topic interesting. It's like the turnaround between, okay, you in a conference tournament, then you're getting ready for the NCAA tournament. It's so quick. I mean, if you're in the play-in game, like Mississippi State, they got to be in Dayton. They got to be in Dayton, and they got to be playing,
right,
by tomorrow night or Tuesday night when that happens. When you look at it overall, how does the turnaround work for you? How quick are you in the film room and prepared?
Right away. You're in the film room right away. But here's what it is. Like, we play in the SEC, we play Saturday and Tuesday sometimes. Now, the only difference is, we know before, you find out on Sunday night that who you're playing Tuesday. So, Mississippi State probably had an idea who the last, 3 or 4 teams in might be and pick any one of them. So maybe you put your staff on a couple of different opponents. You start doing some preliminary stuff. But you know what? This time of the year, Trey, we got in what we got in. We are who we are. And then it's just a matter of looking the opponent and plugging in, what aspects of your offensive
Couple of headlines as we welcome you back to Outkick 360 from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. The NBA and Commissioner Adam Silver, they've suspended Ja Morant for 8 games.
Didn't think it was possible.
This came upon a meeting today in New York with Morant, according to Adrian Wojnarowski. 8 games without pay in response to the March 4th video of Morant holding a firearm. More on that. Plus, news coming, multiple outlets, that Ezekiel Elliott will be released. He'll be designated as a post-June 1st roster move for Dallas. That will save them money on the cap. We welcome in Mike Golick to Outkick 360 with DraftKings. Mike, how are you, man? Good to see you again.
I'm doing well. Boy, what a wild situation with Ja Morant.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is so much fun to watch, and then you see that video and you're like, what the hell? I mean, where is his head in this thing? I was stunned when I saw that, and now you get the ruling, and Memphis having a year this year too.
Yeah,
and certainly they're not doing anything if this guy ain't right. That's for sure.
Yeah, and someone had to step in and act here, and hopefully the counseling helps him. Hopefully the meeting with Silver helps him.
Good that the NBA acted on this too.
No
with
doubt.
The suspension.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's a better story from here on out.
What's the timetable, Mike, for Aaron Rodgers after he says, hey, I want to be a Jet, but we now know that the contract details, the $58 million roster bonus designation, Green Bay doesn't have to actually hit that until September 1st if they so choose. This is interesting from New York's standpoint.
Oh, yeah, this can go a long time. I mean, I know the Jet fans are happy at what they think is going to happen, and I'd imagine it eventually will, but there are some hurdles to get over right now. It was interesting to hear Aaron today. You knew he'd kind of say some things, because we all were going on, I don't know where you guys were on that assumption that he had this list of players that he wanted signed, and even though he said that wasn't true, do people believe him? Did he really not? All of a sudden, there's all these guys that he played with now that all of a sudden may end up on the team. Is this a la Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay? And all of a sudden, players wanted to kind of flock down to him, not necessarily from New England, but players that knew Tom wanted to, or play with Tom, wanted to go down there. Is that the same thing? And is it just coincidence they were his teammates in Green Bay? I don't know. But, when he's tweeting out telling, Adam Schefter, lose my number, it's a little media, a Twitter war going back and forth there. I think it eventually gets done. I know he's a big Hackett fan, Nathaniel Hackett, who's the OC there now. So I think it'll eventually get done. But for those that are expecting, well, if he comes in, Aaron needs to work with these young receivers and all that. Aaron's never done that. Aaron didn't do that last year when he had a bunch of young receivers in Green Bay. So don't expect him to do that. And if he doesn't, don't be mad at him, because that's not what he's done. He's a guy who has some leverage and he's using it. And I have no problem. Some people may not like the way he goes about his business, but he has leverage. And I always say, if you ever have leverage, man, swing the leverage hammer as long as you can. And
it sounds like the Packers have leverage here, too, with that timetable. So if you're the Jets and Woody Johnson, who we know wants the veteran, and it's Rodgers or bust, do you think the Jets have to pony up and pay that price?
Yes, they do. I mean, listen, the Jets have
jumped into this thing with both feet, right? For those that are saying, oh, look at Aaron Rodgers holding them hostage. No, he's not. They're a willing participant. They've flown to him a couple of times. They want him. So when you want him and you see other quarterbacks now start to sign like Garoppolo in Vegas and Carr down in New Orleans, so the quarterbacks are kind of being, siphoned off to other teams. This is what you're going to have, unless for some reason you want to jump into the Lamar Jackson situation, which we may find out later today if anybody's going to be involved in that. But you've kind of committed to this. So if you've committed to this, you start to lose a little bit of leverage depending on where the price tag is going to go on this, because that still has to happen, right? Assets have to go from the Jets to Green Bay.
The Packers sitting there saying, well, Aaron's made a statement, New York. He's going to go there. You have to have him, so you're going to have to give us everything we want. We also just added another draft pick onto the price now after he made that statement. That's the crazy part of all this, Mike, and I look at it and think, let's say Aaron Rodgers plays 3 years with the Jets, which is realistic at 39.
Sure.
It would be make the Super Bowl. I'm not saying win it, but make the Super Bowl or bust in those 3 years if they go all into this level with Aaron Rodgers. Would you agree with that from a Jets perspective?
1,000%.
You're not doing something like this to just get a little bit better and then go to another quarterback. I mean, that's why Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay. Stafford went to the Rams, and those are a couple that worked out. We're seeing more and more in the last couple of years the musical chairs of the quarterbacks, and they're looking to strike gold because they saw it happen with Brady. They saw it happen with Stafford. They tried it in Denver with Russell Wilson, and, oh, by the way, gave him a big chunk of change, and that was a first-year flop. So, yeah, you make a move like this, that's exactly what you're saying is we need to hit the mother load while we have this guy, or kind of everything was for naught. And we know Jet fans are just waiting for the shoe to drop, the rug get pulled out, whatever cliche you want. They're waiting for it to happen because that's what Jet fans do. They know the bad is going to happen, so they're just waiting for it to happen. I think Aaron still last year was certainly an off year for him. Got some nice receivers. I love Garrett Wilson. I love Breece Hall out of the backfield. If they bring in those other couple wide receivers, maybe they grab one in the draft as well. Their defense is playing well. They're primed to make a run. You don't get a guy like Aaron Rodgers or any experienced, really good veteran without the knowledge that you need to make a run while you have that guy.
What an unbelievable division of storylines now in the AFC East. Bills, now the Jets with Aaron Rodgers eventually, and Miami's loading up. And, of course, New England with Belichick and Mac Jones. They're signing Juju Smith-Schuster today. Plenty of reasons to believe that this offseason will be similar to what we thought of the AFC West a year ago.
Well, I completely agree.
And a year ago, though, it was the Bills. Everybody expected the Bills to be the team, right? To dethrone Kansas City and end up in the Super Bowl, or it was the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Bengals. It was those three and then everybody else. And we saw Miami come out of the gate strong. We saw the Jets come out of the gate strong and then fade away. Obviously, it was the wrong quarterback selection for the Jets. As far as Miami, it was the injury to Tua, who was having a monster year and on his way to signing a long-term deal, which that's not going to happen at least for another year. So that team is still good down there. They got two excellent corners now, two excellent wide receivers. The Bills are still the Bills doing well, obviously. And now with the Jets, as I said, Breece Hall coming back from the injury, get a running game going. Your defense is playing well. And you had Aaron Rodgers. You're right in the mix. New England, I'm not sure about. Mac Jones struggled a lot last year. They're moving some pieces around. So it would be weird going into the season thinking it's possible that New England would be at the bottom of the division on paper starting the season.
So Aaron Rodgers is number one, no doubt about it. But what is the second biggest quarterback development this offseason so far with a free agent signing or anything that we've seen?
Well, of the two that happened, I like them
both. Carr to New Orleans and certainly Garoppolo to Vegas. Think of Garoppolo. He went from Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, who had a career year, Christian McCaffrey. Now he goes to Josh Jacobs, who had a career year. Devontae Adams. You got Renfro as well. I know they traded Waller to the Giants, but he's got some good weapons there. The Raiders need to really build up on defense. That's where they need to put a lot of their emphasis. And then it was Aaron Rodgers, and now it's Lamar Jackson, right? The deadline's what, 4:00 today, or what, 4:00 on Wednesday is the day when you can start to make offers. And we're going to find out, is anybody going to, it's easy, right? From the compensation side, it's 2 draft picks and you know it. There's no negotiating there. You're giving up 2 draft picks. Can you do the deal? Will you give the fully guaranteed deal that he's looking for? And we know that's what he's looking for. Are you going to do it? Or are all the owners, and I think we all know this, all the owners are ticked off at Haslam in Cleveland for giving the fully guaranteed deal to Deshaun Watson, and they don't want to do that. So people are calling it collusion. I don't know if they need to collude to all decide they don't want to start going down this road, because remember, this is what happened in the NBA and baseball. Those contracts are guaranteed. That was not negotiated. That is not in the CBA. That's just where it went by players holding out and over time getting the guaranteed contracts. And that's where players want to go in football, and owners don't want to touch that. So that one to me is going to be very interesting where it ends up.
You think Baltimore just matches the best offer he receives and that's it?
So a lot of people say, well, there's too much bad blood there. You know what solves bad blood is money. And it really, really makes you forget about a lot of bad blood. Because that's the one thing I've always said to players when asked about negotiations or anything. And everybody's negotiations, whether I'm negotiating for $1 million or Lamar Jackson's negotiating for $250 million, it's still a negotiation. It's so easy for me to say this. You can't take it personal and you can't get emotional. But it's hard to do that. You can say it, but it's hard to do because you get so involved, especially he is involved in his mom because they don't have an agent. But you got to understand it's a business decision. So Baltimore and Lamar couldn't come to an agreement. So there's part of me that thinks Baltimore just said, okay, listen, we're going to non-exclusive tag you and we're going to let you go see what somebody else thinks you're worth. And then, you know what, if we feel it fits within us, or you actually get the fully guaranteed thing, which we didn't want to give, but someone was willing to do it, we'll match it. That's what I'm interested to see. Very interested is any deal that comes up, will they match it? Because then if he wants to play, he has to go back to Baltimore and play. And believe me, he will forget about the bad blood when that money's involved.
Absolutely. And I know all's well that ends well in this if he ends up getting a huge contract and what he wants. But, Mike, how much does not having an agent affect Lamar Jackson negatively throughout all of this?
So I would say in a
A lot of cases, it would. In this case, not so much, because we know what he wants. So I guess let me ask you, what would an agent do differently here outside of maybe trying to talk Lamar out of getting a guaranteed contract? But if Lamar is adamant about getting a guaranteed contract that needs to start at $230 million, if that's his floor, what is and I'm really asking this, I'm not saying this, I'm really wondering, what would an agent do to accomplish that where he couldn't just say it? It's not like you're negotiating. They offered, 200, I want 210, or they offered 150, I want 180, and let's find a place in the middle. That's really not what this is. He either is going to get the guaranteed deal, if not, and then they start negotiating for what's guaranteed and what's not, then you would be, I think you're in a position where maybe you would need an agent. But I applaud anybody who tries to do it without an agent. For whatever reason they want to do it, you want to give it a shot, give it a shot. Could it cost you? Yes. Could you pull it off? Yes. Depends on the situation.
Number 1 overall currently in Carolina in the draft. Which quarterback are they after, Mike? Or and how about the reports immediately after the trade that they're open for business at pick 1? I've found that really interesting.
Oh, I would say it too. Why not? I mean, you're nothing to lose. You know what? You can never, ever is a problem answering the phone, right? It's always nice when someone's calling you and you don't have to call them. So they can call Carolina and let's see, does someone offer some monster trade? So this is what it comes down to. It comes down to there's 4 quarterbacks that are going to go in the first round. It doesn't matter what anybody outside of the Carolina organization thinks, except for them and their grades. If their grades are close between, let's just say, Young and Stroud, if their grades are close and they can deal with either one of them, maybe they'll trade. If the grades are close with 3 of the quarterbacks, maybe they would trade out of it knowing they'll still get one of those guys. But if their grade is really higher for one than the others, then you got to think about staying at the same spot. So that's all this comes down. I remember when Ryan Tannehill, when I think went number 7 to Miami when he went in the first round. And I remember we're all going, my God, that was high. And I'll never forget Ron Jaworski saying, it doesn't matter what any of us think. It only matters what the grade is that the Miami Dolphins had on Ryan Tannehill. And then you see if it's right or wrong, because we know first round quarterbacks is a 50-50 shot. It could be a bust. So we'll have to wait and see. The amazing thing to me, guys, is I read after the combine, did CJ Stroud pass Bryce Young as the top pick after his combine? I'm like, this blows my mind, because you've scouted their actual football play. And if after their football play, you had Bryce Young as number 1, and then he didn't work out at the combine, but CJ Stroud did, and you jump Stroud over Young, I question you. I question what the hell you're doing if you go off somebody in shorts and a t-shirt and jump them for that. For me, I have covered and I have watched the 4 quarterbacks that we're talking about. Actual play, actual football. I like them all. I put Young and CJ Stroud above the other 2. And if it were me, I would take CJ Stroud. He would be my quarterback. But I like Bryce Young right there as well. But Stroud, if it were up to me and I had to make a decision about it, but again, Carolina doesn't care about mine. It's only what their grade is. It would be Stroud. And it doesn't mean I don't think Bryce Young could be that guy, because I do think he is right there. Not a lot separating them.
We have strong feelings about Will Levis on the show, and they're not positive about him as a pro quarterback or his time in Kentucky. But I do think, Mike, that all 4 of the guys we're talking about will probably end up going top 10 based on some teams drafting and that thirst for a quarterback at all times. Do you think all 4 of those top quarterbacks will end up being top 10 picks?
I do. And
History tells us 2 will make it and 2 won't, right? So, I mean, you want to talk about crossing your fingers if you're a fan or part of the franchise, because you don't know. And quite honestly, I think there'd be 5. If Hendon Hooker didn't hurt his knee from Tennessee, I love that kid. Well, and I know they said he'd be ready by the season, but you're going to miss an awful lot going into that. I think he would have been a first rounder. Yeah, I do think at the end of the day, the value of the quarterback, we know the value of the quarterback is so high. So teams may start trying to jump over who they need to, even though there are teams in that top 10 that are looking for quarterbacks, where I do think they'll get taken. And listen, we knew Richardson and Levis were going to be studs at they were going to look the part, right? I mean, Bryce Young's small, but the other 3 that are going to go in the first round are a little more of physical specimens. And we knew, everyone going nuts about Richardson at the combine, we all knew he was going to do it. Dude is a freak athlete. That was a known commodity already. I'm still going to watch tape. And I know he had 19 throwaways and some of the most drops around the country. I get it, because his completion percentage wasn't very good. And a lot of times you can struggle coming into the league with that, though Josh Allen overcame that. Jalen Hurts overcame that. Doesn't mean everybody will, but we knew those guys were going to be freakish at the combine. That's why the only thing I really dig at the combine about it is, what are you doing in the meeting room when they turn the film on, when you have to go up to the chalkboard, when you have to break something down? That's my concern. I know you're going to look good in shorts and a t-shirt, okay? I'm concerned more about your film playing and what you can do in the classroom in breaking things down. And that's where we're not. We're not there. So if those, I don't know what those guys did. It sounds like they did great from that aspect, which really is going to up the value a lot, because that's when you see the physical tools, but what we don't know is what they are in the film room and talking about plays and everything like that. And again, it all sounds like it went well, which is why another reason I do think all 4 will be in the top 10.
Mike, how are things at DraftKings?
I'm enjoying it. I get to do pods there. I'm doing some pods with Meadowlark, with Stugatz and those guys as well. And my son's over at DraftKings, so we do shows together there. And it's funny, I do a podcast, Golic and Smetty, with Jess Smetana. She's my youngest daughter's age, and she went to Notre Dame. So we have a real generational gap going on from like 28 to 60, as far as what we talk about and stuff. But it's a lot of fun. I kind of miss the day-to-day. I've had a couple opportunities to jump back. I still may, because I do enjoy talking day-to-day. I just didn't enjoy really getting up at 4:15 every day.
Yeah.
Don't blame you. What are your early thoughts on Marcus Freeman at your alma mater?
Listen, I love Marcus.
And I mean, it was tough to get hamstrung right in the beginning of the season. You lose your starter. and you're playing with your backup all year, so your passing game was extremely limited. You had wide receivers that were a bit inexperienced. You had the best tight end in the game, and Michael Mayer. Your old line came along. I think a big reason because Harry Heastand had come back for the year, the old line coach. Now you got a stable of running backs, and now you got in Sam Hartman. This kid's throwing about 5,000 touchdowns over the last few years.
Yeah.
And that's something Notre Dame has missed a bit. A guy who can really whip the ball around, and they have some really good young wide receivers and guys that are maturing a little more. So the future, I think, is a good one there. And Marcus does a great job of recruiting. He is such a personable guy. You talk with him for 5 minutes and you walk away and say, wow, that guy's got that great it factor.
Mike Golick has been our guest, DraftKings sports analyst. Mike, thank you so much, man. Always enjoy the opportunity to chat with you.
You got it, guys. No problem.
Thank you.
Mike Golick there. Follow him on social at Golick. Always great. Real quick, Adam Silver's quote on Ja Morant's suspension, 8-game suspension handed down about 15 minutes ago from the NBA after a meeting between Silver and Morant in New York today. Ja's conduct was irresponsible, reckless, and potentially very dangerous. It also has serious consequences given his enormous following and influence, particularly among young fans who look up to him. He's expressed sincere contrition and remorse for his behavior. That from Commissioner Adam Silver. Again, an 8-game suspension. Rachel Nichols says it's because they could not prove one way or the other if he brought it on the plane and if he brought it into the club on the video. But he is holding it, he's displaying it, and that somehow comes up with 8 games.
As opposed to 50.
50 if he brought it on a mandatory 50-game suspension if he did this at the team facility, which also, carries to the plane and other team business properties.
That part of it to me was very expected that he could easily use the defense of. It was a buddies that brought in. I was just showing it in the club.
Hey, but after this meeting, you have to expect, if something else happens,
it's an automatic.
It's
50-game suspension.
Surely he's been told that by Silver.
I would hope so.
He left the counseling in Florida to head to New York.
Some quick counseling that he went through in Florida to go to New York to get suspended for 8 games.
Yep.
I hope he's better. I hope he makes better decisions because he is an unbelievable talent.
Yes, no doubt. Coming up every Wednesday, we air our top grievance of the week. Primary complaint next on Outkick 360.
Arizona gives Corbin Carroll, 22-year-old Corbin Carroll, he of all 115 Major League plate appearances, a 8-year, $111 million deal. All guaranteed. Club has, I think, a 9th-year option for $23 million or something like that. But and Bill, we were talking earlier. This is the fusion, or this is where old school baseball and sabermetrics meet, and I think they butt heads. Because in my mind, this is sabermetricians saying, okay, all of his other numbers, all of his underlying numbers from college and the minor leagues tell us that he's going to be this $100 million player, so we're going to save some money and sign him. Whereas the old school guys would be like, hey, you know what? Give me a year or two of production, and then we'll take care of you. I just think that there's obviously as a player, who wouldn't love it? But as a team, no chance. No chance, given the physical nature of the game, given the challenge of the schedule, and the human factor. I mean, how is he going to handle a slump in the big leagues? How's he going to handle the 14-day West Coast, East Coast road trips? I mean, there's just so many things. I believe this is one of those guys that almost, I feel like Chipper Jones or Alex Rodriguez, when you see him, he's a can't miss. And I believe he is, but I don't believe to the tune of $111 million. So, I'm curious, as a fan of a team, is this something that excites you or something that worries you?
It worries me a great deal because, as you're saying, and it doesn't matter to me what the GM was thinking, but basically he's saying, I know this kid's going to be great.
Right.
And if all of a sudden he levels off and is a 240 hitter who's stealing a couple bases and doesn't have major league power, you're stuck with $111 million over the next 8 years.
Yeah. I mean, this is a very, I don't want to say very common, but you're seeing this over the last 5 years more than you've ever seen it in the history of the game combined. It just never happened. I mean, you know, guys like Soto and you know, Machado and all these young guys who got good deals young or bigger deals young. I don't know. I mean, listen, it's not my money. So as a fan, you shouldn't care. Although, is this a guy? I think the answer is yes. This is a centerpiece, right? This is a guy that you plan to have in the middle of your lineup, in the middle of your defense. Obviously, I'm assuming he's going to bring some stuff in the clubhouse as well. But this is a sign of modern baseball, for all it's worth, for whatever you want to take that for. It's a different game.
The other thing, Kurt, that you said, and you've said this in earlier podcasts, but this is the first time these kids are on fields where they're not the best player on the field.
Right.
Everybody else is as good as you.
Right.
Well,
and this is a contract where the Diamondbacks are saying this kid will continue to be the best player on the field. Right. And I guess if you're looking for the 5-tool guy, this is it, right? I mean, you're talking about a 25 homer, 300 hitting, 400 on base percentage, 50 steal, Gold Glove caliber, you know. And if that's the player, which, you know, God bless him if he is, if that's the player, then it turns out to be a great deal.
Sixth and Peabody, our location, coming up. I've got my top 5 free agent signings thus far. And we'll dive into some other headlines, including the Colts and a contract they gave a kicker, plus Michael Irvin and the latest there after he was taken off the air, out in Phoenix for the Super Bowl coverage due to what was the accusation was assault. And now he's dropped his countersuit and video's out finally because a judge mandated it.
It's rare that video evidence frees someone.
Very odd. And
but I think that may be the case here.
Multiple pressers.
Yeah.
Before that, it's time for primary complaint.
It's time to air our top grievance of the week. You can complain all you want.
My job is so unfulfilling. Don't run away from your feelings.
It's time for Primary Complaint on Outkick 360.
Guys, my primary complaint this week annoys me. This time every year. The league year for the NFL begins at 4 p.m. Eastern today, literally 10 minutes from right now. And teams have been able to negotiate and agree to terms with players from across the league since Monday. Well, teams can't announce that and make that official until 4 p.m. Eastern today. However, multiple reports are out there. We have to say reported, that they're agreed to terms. They haven't signed yet, of course. But the league that has that policy, that doesn't allow teams to, quote unquote, sign players before Wednesday at 4 p.m., immediately quotes and cites their own reporters, their own insiders, Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport. They're sending out immediate tweets with the news that the team should be able to announce and discuss prior to Wednesday at 4 p.m. if the league is under the same umbrella and they're doing this on social. That's my primary complaint.
So my primary complaint is that it's March. It's not because it's March. That's not my complaint. I love the NCAA tournament. It tips off tomorrow and Friday with the first rounds. Great 2 days of sports. I also really like Spike Lee. Big fan of his films. Think he does great work. Sam Jackson is a legitimate movie star. Love the guy. Charismatic. Great in almost everything. Charles Barkley, love him too. I like all these guys. My problem is, and my primary complaint is the fact that because of the NCAA tournament, this is an annual reminder that by April, when the national championship game is played, I will hate all three of these guys because in every commercial break, they will appear in a Capital One commercial together, and it's going to become very, very annoying. This is your reminder that it's March, and get ready for lots of Spike Lee, Sam Jackson, Charles Barkley with the occasional cameo from Jim Nantz on the road together, going to some make-believe NCAA tournament game in a commercial, and it's going to annoy the piss out of all of us. That is my primary complaint.
Have they done one where Jim gives his tie away in the Capital One commercial?
But that need a tie-in with a tie company. I think that would be the smart marketing move, right? Let's get a tie company involved and have a joint commercial.
He may give it to himself this year because this is his final NCAA March Madness tournament to call play-by-play. Davey?
Guys, my primary complaint is the fact that people always complain about daylight savings time. It's not daylight savings time itself. It's like, I get it. I mean, Carl, you're 55. It's happened every year of your life. We spring forward and we fall back. It continues to happen. Like anything, there are pros and cons. Like a con, seasonal depression, that helps out with that. A pro, if you guys remember the 2004 blockbuster hit National Treasure, that movie was fantastic. And if it wasn't for daylight savings time, how would we remember that epic scene where Riley Poole actually proves his worth to Ben and Abigail Chase by being like, oh, well, we got to figure out that on the back of the clock tower of a $100 bill is the Independence Hall, and we got to find out exactly what time it is. Well, it turns out it's 2:22 on that clock, but if you look, we got to make sure that right now it's 3 o'clock, but oh wait, daylight savings time wasn't invented or established until World War I. So with that being the case, it's still technically before 2:22. Therefore, they're able to actually get to Independence Hall in time to see where the sunlight hits just right to where they can find the glasses that Ben Franklin left behind for them to find, to where then Nicolas Cage is able to be like, oh, I can finally read the invisible map on the back of the Declaration of Independence. Therefore, we're able to stop the treacherous and conniving Ian from getting the treasure and ruining everything. Now, if it wasn't for daylight savings time, would we have that? No, I rest my case.
Chad, did you get all the details right? What did you leave out on the movie? Did you watch that last night?
I don't know. No. I don't know that movie as well, but yeah. I mean, look, I felt like Davey was in front of Congress, arguing for the position to keep daylight savings time.
Yes,
it was a filibuster that he was going on, and it worked. I think that he properly sold daylight savings time.
So
the seasonal depression part of it, though, that's the one I always hear.
We have
or like putting your kids out in the darkness. That's a big deal in the winter. I don't want my kids waiting at the bus in the dark, and that's always a big selling point against.
Extra hour until November 5th, apparently. There you go. That's when we'll have to fall back again.
This extra hour, not the extra hour, the one less hour of sleep, the spring forward, has really screwed me up. I feel like I'm on jet lag. Like I just flew to Madrid for the last 3 days, and it's been one hour we're talking about.
You know how, like, when you're
But I cannot adjust, and I also haven't changed my alarm clock right next to me, so I it's messing with me constantly because I just need to change it, and I've been too lazy to change it.
When I was a kid, I didn't realize, like, it's one of those things I've learned too late in life, but it's like I thought for all of summer, like, we just had an extra hour.
Oh, it's 25th hour.
Yeah. I was like, all right, that's good to know. And I turned 10, but
And now everyone's on spring break this week as well.
I think 25th Hour was a Spike Lee movie, in fact.
Maybe they'll reference it in the commercial.
It all ties back in.
Maybe they'll reference it in this
Possibly.
commercial.
I think Edward Norton was in that movie.
Top 5 free agent signings, and the Texans are included in my list. That's next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into Outkick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll them, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper-rational. They looked at the data, and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Outkick 360 rolls on. Glad you're with us this afternoon, Wednesday edition. Coming up in 20 minutes, Bobby Carpenter will join the show, plus Shannon Terry and Grant Firkin of On 3 to discuss name, image, likeness, what Shannon believes will be federal legislation, and we'll dive into Texas A&M versus the NCAA. Miami taking the penalty, A&M saying we're doing nothing wrong, and separate issues, but down the same path. Shannon will dissect that for us as well. Free agency is officially underway. The new league year, Chad. The new year in the NFL, as of right now.
It's like our new year, the Chinese new year, and then the NFL new year. Those are the 3 new years that we observe.
That's right. Adam Thielen is reportedly, he hasn't signed with the Panthers yet, but the thought is he will be doing that soon. And Taven Bryan, most recently in Jacksonville, he's now with Cleveland. Chad, I've liked several moves so far that can now be official by each individual team, even though the NFL has made them official by tweeting them and citing their reporters. And I went through this thinking what a team could have done versus what they did. And that's why the Houston Texans start things off for me. I think the signing at quarterback and what they've done by bringing in Case Keenum is very smart, and here's why. They didn't sign Jimmy Garoppolo. They were the other team mentioned in the Jimmy Garoppolo sweepstakes, and they didn't pay Garoppolo to come in and do what we all know, which is going to be take a seat next to a rookie quarterback at some point next season. Houston did this the right way, believe it or not. Case Keenum's a solid backup. That's where he started his career in Houston. And now just take the quarterback at 2. I was surprised to see Houston in the mix for Garoppolo for as long as they were. McClain kept telling us it's not going to happen. They're not going to sign a big name veteran. But until the bitter end, as Monday began, it was Houston and Vegas for Jimmy G. It's a nice signing by Vegas, but Houston did the right thing. Cam Sutton to the Lions, goes from Pittsburgh to Detroit. This is a great fit. He's going to fit the mentality of that team, of that locker room, of their head coach perfectly. I think the Detroit defense just got a ton better based on that one addition. And they've made some other nice moves and will load up again defensively in the draft. But Cam Sutton, I think, is a very underrated signing. Pittsburgh replaced him with Patrick Peterson. But Cam Sutton, with his footwork and the level of execution he's not always the most athletic player when you compare him to other defensive backs. But, Chad, he is, when it comes down to just the mannerisms of which he plays, players rave about him because he's just smooth with everything that he does on the field.
He's also really intelligent. He's a ball hawk. He knows where the football is going and does a good job getting to it. And dare I say the Lions have an identity now under Dan Campbell.
No doubt.
And that they have guys that we talk about this with Pittsburgh and Baltimore a lot, that when they sign a guy or draft them, you start to think that's a Lions-type player. Crazy to say that for the Lions franchise, but I do believe under Dan Campbell, they have a type. And Cam Sutton is that type.
And it's
fits the type.
It's perfect for what they were asking for and how they played defense. Also, Denver, I mentioned this yesterday a bit, but I love what they've done on the offensive line. They've paid their offensive line to drastically improve. They get Mike McGlinchey. They add in Ben Powers, and I'm adding them to my list at number 3, the Denver Broncos. Phenomenal job addressing what was a huge need. The interior offensive line was awful. Right tackle has been a huge problem for them, and they bring in McGlinchey and Powers, who they just play games. They don't miss starts, and they execute. They play very well, very consistent, and Denver's offensive line for Russell Wilson and for Sean Payton's offense will be a lot better just based on how they've addressed it early in free agency. Derek Carr to the Saints makes my list at number 2, Chad, because while we wait on Aaron Rodgers and the trade between Green Bay and New York, the Saints went right after Derek Carr. They were given permission to chat with him, where a trade didn't happen, but they were the first to knock on the door. And while Carr made the rounds and he went and met with the Jets, and apparently it was out there that the Jets feel like they could win a Super Bowl with Derek Carr. Onward to Indianapolis, where Carr made the rounds and spoke with other teams. But he came back to the organization that I think makes the most sense for him. Plenty of weapons around him, and he has a chance at a fresh start within an offense that should be very good for his overall skill set. He can let it rip. He can also dink and dunk. That's been the how we would describe him for the majority of his career. But the deep passing yards picked up for him over the last season and a half. And now it has a chance to pick up with a young wide receiving core. Michael Thomas is coming back. And you have Alvin Kamara, as we may be suspended, but we have Alvin Kamara in the offense. And beyond that, other weapons in a solid offensive line. I like what New Orleans did. They addressed the quarterback position, and they're onward. They're moving forward with their veteran QB while New York continues to wait.
This is the second most significant quarterback development so far outside of Aaron Rodgers saying he wants to get traded to the Jets. Lamar Jackson will be the other one when something moves there with the Ravens or someone else. But I put Derek Carr ahead of Jimmy Garoppolo with the Raiders in terms of significance because, A, I think Carr's a better player, and B, I just think it's going to be a better fit and a better team and situation in that division with the Saints as opposed to anything Jimmy G can do with what's left with the Raiders.
Chad, number one for me, Javon Hargrave, defensive tackle, interior pass rusher, 11 sacks last season for the Philadelphia Eagles. And he goes to San Francisco in a very similar defensive front. He's going to be asked to do exactly the same thing. And he's now paired with Nick Bosa. Buckle up. Because I think the addition of and by the way, it's a very team-friendly contract where the number looks steep, $80+ million, $40 million guaranteed, but there's little risk down the road for what the 49ers are going to pay up front with him. I love his story. I love how his trajectory continues to rise. And the interior defensive linemen across the league also love this. Guys like Jeff Simmons and others are going to get paid based on Hargrave's payday that he gets to sign today. It's brilliant by San Fran. And again, Bosa is going to be even better because on the interior you have a huge force. This is the deal that DeForest Buckner wanted but didn't get. And that's why he was traded to Indianapolis a couple of years ago. Now we see Hargrave get it. I love it. I think it's the best signing so far.
So Hutton's top NFL free agent so far. Number 5, Case Keenum with the Texans. 4, Cam Sutton to the Lions. 3, Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey on the offensive line to the Broncos. 2, Derek Carr to the Saints. 1, Javon Hargrave to the 49ers. Plenty more to come. We can update this list.
Yeah,
as more free agency signings happen throughout the offseason.
You like what I'm saying about the Texans?
Throughout the new year of the NFL.
You understand where I'm going with the Texans, though. I don't think Case Keenum is some great addition. I just like their line of thinking.
It's significant because it shows they're going to draft quarterback.
Yeah, I think, but I still think Vegas could do it too. But they're paying the veteran price to Garoppolo when Houston chose not to. And that's the way to do it.
What it signifies is they're going to go all in on their rookie quarterback. That's what you should do
case.
with the number 2 overall pick.
No doubt. Indianapolis is going all in with their kicker. They signed Matt Gay to a 4-year, $22.5 million contract, the biggest deal for a kicker in free agency, and the most money over 3 years for a kicker on a deal negotiated by his agency. And Chad, this is, I mean, we've reached a point now where the salary cap floor, every position's getting a bump up. You know, the new guy to sign is generally always the newest, highest paid position, but here's Indy. Everyone's looking out to see what they do at QB and the saga that was their coaching search, and they're making headlines about paying their free agent kicker.
Just not the headline I'd want to make.
Well, yeah.
Of all the headlines, I would not want to be the NFL franchise that pays the most for a kicker in history.
Unless
say, guys, we're going to show how we mean business this year. Let's break the bank on kicker. That's the position we're going all in on.
So Warren
Just
Sharp,
me, though. I mean, he might be great. He might win some games for them. Adam Vinatieri certainly won games for both New England and Indianapolis. So maybe this is another situation like that.
And they got rid of Rodrigo Blankenship after week 1 last year because it was so bad. The Colts, this is through Warren Sharp, the Colts have used $151 million of their cap on quarterbacks since 2017. It's the third most money spent via the cap space it took up in the NFL. Their record over that same time span, 45-52-1. So a losing record, winning 46% of their games, and the names on here are just jarring. You know, they released Matt Ryan yesterday officially, but Sam Ehlinger, Nick Foles also started last season.
Who can forget former Wisconsin Badger Scott Tolzien back in 2017?
Started a game against the Titans in 2017. Phillip Rivers is in here. Of course, Carson Wentz, the contract they acquired. And Jacoby Brissett and Brian Hoyer the year after Andrew Luck said sayonara. What do you think Andrew Luck's up to?
He's probably hosting a book club podcast somewhere. People have asked if that book club podcast still exists. I checked it. At one point, there's not been an episode in like a year and a half. So maybe he's just finishing a really good book. It just took him a long time to finish it. Or he's working on the entire works of some author, and then he'll relaunch the Andrew Luck Book Club podcast.
Or maybe he's interviewed them all. There's nothing left to do. He's read them all.
I love how Andrew Luck geeks out over the authors or people he has on his podcast. It's so great. It's so Andrew Luck, and it's perfect.
Michael Irvin has maintained his innocence from moment number 1 when the allegations came out involving assault at the hotel, the Marriott property in Arizona. His legal team held some press conferences. Irvin was there. And, Chad, they released the long-awaited surveillance video. And, of course, the female employee of the hotel was claiming that, you know, she was assaulted by Irvin. And he said it didn't happen. We had a 5-minute conversation, and that was it. A judge had to step in and force the release of the video because the hotel property wasn't giving that up, the surveillance video. And Michael Irvin says that he believes this video clears his name, and we can take a look at it. But the surveillance video, Chad, is very standard from what I've seen and what I've viewed in this.
Yeah,
I don't see any physical issue with what took place.
In the video, he stands, you know, body size in between, apart from the woman. They seem to be calmly talking the whole time. They shake hands at the end of it. He taps her on the shoulder before walking away. It also ends with another worker at the hotel taking a picture with Michael Irvin. I don't think you're probably doing that or asking if there's some contentious situation going on between Michael Irvin and someone else. Usually we go to the video and find that it's not great things that took place. This is one that, to me, exonerates Michael Irvin. From what I see in this video, I don't know if there's something else that went on or happened, but I have no clue how someone could make an assault complaint based on the video that we see in front of us.
And the interaction happens for roughly 2 minutes or so. And he said, look, the old saying, the eye in the sky don't lie. And they were demanding this. They finally got it and held their own presser and showed the media. He refiled a lawsuit in the state of Arizona, and it names 4 hotel employees in addition to Marriott. And the case continues. But Irvin's attorney wants to get his client back on the air. And, Chad, I'm thinking he needs to be back on immediately based on this.
Yeah, I'm thinking that NFL Network is probably thinking we made the wrong call, sending him home. Based on this, if he was saying he was innocent the whole time, you know, they should have backed their guy a little bit more and believed him in this and not just taken an allegation as the full truth and not sent him away from the coverage. But absolutely now that this video is out there and Michael Irvin may have some money headed his way.
Why not what took so long on this video? I
think it's pretty clear why the hotel didn't want to hand it over.
But, I mean, if
they
it's
have
security footage based on the lawsuit that's been filed, I just don't get it. While you hold it back 3 extra days after the judge said to release it, crazy.
Well, they held it back because they know now they're probably going to be liable for some money. In a settlement, at least, in this.
Still, man, it's just, if something goes down Don't you go to the security camera and see it, and you just hold it back if it's not true?
I think if something goes down, and it's the woman making an allegation that if you're her employer, you go to the security footage and you say, "What are we missing here?
Yeah.
What are you alleging, and what happened exactly?" And just showing the footage to her and saying what's being said.
And
There's
meanwhile,
no
he's
touch.
not on air.
There's no.
Is my point though. Like from Marriott's stance, I don't understand why they held it as long as they did. Coming up, Bobby Carpenter will join us. We'll hit the free agency headlines across the NFL, get his take on some of the big trades and more. And we'll hit some headlines later in today about college hoops. Brandon Miller's back in the headlines with Alabama, and he's going to have personal security throughout the tournament. Details on that and more. Bobby Carpenter next on Outkick 360.
Latest edition of the Trey Wallace Podcast, powered by Outkick.com. Happy to be joined by Auburn head basketball coach Bruce Pearl. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great, Trey. How are you doing?
I am good. Thanks for taking the time. I know things are busy. You're getting prepared for the NCAA tournament, and what a wild time. Walk me through yesterday, what that was like on Selection Sunday, just getting that announcement, finding out, okay, we're in the NCAA tournament again, and the players' reactions to it.
Yeah, Trey, it never gets old. You know, that one shining moment really means something. You know what? And it's hard to get in. I mean, there are so many good teams that had great records that just did not get in. I think the body of work is obviously, to me, your last games are as important as your first games. And they're judging teams based on the entire season, which worked out really well for us because we played 6 teams in the non-conference that were in the NCAA tournament and beat 3 of them. We played 3 true road games in the non-conference against Power 5 schools. No other Power 5 school, did that. We won some good ones, but even the ones we lost, like at Texas A&M or at Tennessee or at Alabama, we're all really close. And so you got rewarded for not getting blown out, for going on the road, and you really get rewarded for winning, but you get rewarded for being in the games too. So anyways, the kids were excited, and obviously, the 8-9 game is going to be a tough game because Iowa's a really good team.
Hey, how much goes into that? When you guys are scheduling opponents and you look at the way that college basketball is now, they want you to go out there and they want you to take those chances. When it comes to the strength of schedule and down the road and how it helps out teams come March, when they're vying for a tournament, how much time and preparation do you put in to something like that, to making sure, okay, we need to get at least 2 or 3. We try in the non-conference, but you know how tough the SEC is, but it just feels that strength of schedule is such a big component.
It is. I mean, I think, and they've been consistent with that. And so you got to put your team at risk. You got to take them on the road. You got to play good teams on neutral sites. And then, we've always tried to schedule like mid-majors that could win their league, that were going to have, really good seasons, that had good culture. It's dangerous because what happens is if you get beat by one of them, it also can devastate your math. But it's all about risk reward, and you got to have enough confidence in your team. But I do think the strength of schedule, I think the committee has consistently rewarded people that have played tough schedules.
A lot of people find this topic interesting. It's like the turnaround between, okay, you in a conference tournament, then you're getting ready for the NCAA tournament. It's so quick. I mean, if you're in the play-in game, like Mississippi State, they got to be in Dayton. They got to be in Dayton, and they got to be playing, by tomorrow night or Tuesday night when that happens. When you look at it overall, how does the turnaround work for you? How quick are you in the film room and prepared?
Right away. You're in the film room right away. But here's what it is. Like, we play in the SEC, we play Saturday and Tuesday sometimes. Now, the only difference is, we know before, you find out on Sunday night that who you're playing Tuesday. So, Mississippi State probably had an idea who the last, 3 or 4 teams in might be and pick any one of them. So maybe you put your staff on a couple of different opponents. You start doing some preliminary stuff. But you know what? This time of the year, Trey, we got in what we got in. We are who we are. And then it's just a matter of looking the opponent and plugging in, what aspects of your offensive.
Coming to you live from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hutton and Withrow with you. Joined by Bobby Carpenter, SiriusXM college football analyst, Channel 84, and much more. He's our analyst as well. Bobby, good to see you, man.
Hey, good to see you guys. How's everything going on this lovely Wednesday?
Great. New league year. Happy New Year. League year underway in the NFL. What was the most nerve-wracking negotiation of your time in the league?
Gosh, I mean, probably either my rookie deal, just because you don't know anything about anything at that point.
Yeah.
You're coming in and it's like you want to practice with your team and you've never been in a professional situation before where, and that was back before it was all slotted. So like people are jockeying for this language, that language, these dollars, how they're going to be allocated. And it was a little bit different than the slotting now. And, Bill Parcells is my coach. He's a no nonsense guy. And, I'm like worried. I'm out there. We went to training camp at Oxnard, so I'm on site. I'm there, and it's like talking to my agent. Like, do I go into these meetings? Yes or no? Like, what do I do? And thankfully, there's a couple other guys, Jason Witten, Brady James, who were with my agent. Like, listen, man, and I'm like worried about what people are going to think. I don't want to be a first-round draft pick that's like holding out about, God knows what. But they don't start these negotiations till like 2 days before. It's like, I'm like, can't we just like get this done in like mid-July and call it a day, wrap it up, it'll all be good? No, we're going to wait till like July 27th and start it right before camp. And so that was kind of nerve-wracking. And then, a little bit too, I was a free agent coming into the COVID year. And that was weird and unique because, or not the COVID year, the lockout year, where they shut down the league year, so they had the draft before free agency, and then they got something done right before the start of the season. So there was people scrambling to get signed, and what's that going to look like? And then ultimately, for some reason, we had to wait a day to practice if you were a free agent versus a player on the team already. And so there was a little bit of stress there, just because they were trying to get like a third of the league signed in basically a day or two, and I was going to go back to Detroit. I felt fairly strongly about that, but I didn't necessarily have the normal free agent experience that you would have had, and so I felt like I was kind of cheated. But there was a little bit of stress and anxiety there, just of not knowing, like, hey, what else is out there, and do you want to pursue something else? And if that doesn't work out, would there still be a place for you here? And it was just all accelerated there, and you had the draft beforehand, so it was a much, much different paradigm than what we're living in now.
And now, Bobby, imagine doing all that on your own without representation and without an agent. And that's what Lamar Jackson is doing right now. What do you think of that decision to represent himself and not have an agent?
Well, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, especially coming out as a draft pick now, just because it's all slotted. And if you're going to go high in the first 40 picks, then okay, it doesn't necessarily matter a ton. But quarterback's a different beast because the contracts are so big, and trying to find comps and comparisons. And those guys, they can get franchise tagged, and the dollar amounts mean a lot, and exclusive versus non-exclusive. And then the reality is it's really hard to gauge your self-worth when you don't have an agent, because at the combine in different places, that's when they go and they have these conversations and they talk and they try to figure out, hey, this is what this team thinks of you, or this team really likes you, or there's a possibility here or there. And you can kind of gauge what people would pay. And so, agents, they're not technically supposed to do that, but the reality is that they do. And, whether it's some of the guys that we're talking to someone else, or we're over here talking to this guy, and you just kind of throw out some hypotheticals, or the team's like, hey, we might be interested in this guy should he become available. I mean, just keep that in the back of your mind. And so all that stuff happens. And without an agent, it's really tough to be plugged in on what your market value is. And then also not to take things personally. That's also another big piece of it where, the Ravens, the way they've been handling this, you could argue organizationally is pretty good, but as a player, it probably doesn't feel all that great. It's not an ideal situation for Lamar to be in. And then also the last piece for him is he's a very unique quarterback with his skill set. And so you have to take into account, his running ability and building an offense around him, and then also the injury concerns. So there's a lot of moving parts for him as opposed to a guy that's just, an elite corner on the outside. And you're like, hey, this is what other corners make who have been this good. You think I'm about here and there. This is what I want my guaranteed money. These are off the other contracts and how they look. And you can kind of slot it in. Whereas this, it's a very, very difficult situation. I mean, it's almost most contracts for most guys. I mean, a lot of it's like a coloring book. The Asian gets 3%. They don't have to do a whole lot. With Lamar Jackson, and especially quarterbacks, but especially him, I mean, that thing is like painting the Sistine Chapel, from scratch. Like, there's no tracings, there's no etchings up there. You got to get on the scaffold, climb it, and envision it, and get it done.
So Ezekiel Elliott's going to be looking for a new contract. He's released by the Cowboys. Jerry Jones puts out a very emotional statement about Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, talks about him like he's Emmitt Smith in this statement about how much he means to the Cowboys family. Clearly, Jerry Jones, a big fan of Ezekiel Elliott and what he meant to the Cowboys team. What do you think of him moving forward now in this decision by the Cowboys to part ways?
I think everybody knew that there was going to be a contract adjustment that was going to come. I thought that they'd be able to get something worked out in Dallas. I know Zeke loves being there. I knew Jerry loves him. I mean, I think he sees a lot of himself in Zeke. Zeke's a tough guy. He's done a lot for the team over the years. He's played hurt. He's been great in the community. He's been a leader in that locker room. He's a tough guy. And so there's a lot of reasons to want him in your locker room and want him on your team, just at finding that right price. And I don't know if they just found they're at an impasse, couldn't get it done. So I think Zeke wanted to be there and probably would have taken a little less. I don't know if the door's fully closed on Zeke returning, but I mean, he has value for a team to come in. And yeah, he's not going to be your featured guy or giving the ball 400 times to, but there's a lot of value that he can come in and bring to a team, especially a team that's a contender. And if you need a guy that can definitely always convert in short yardage, that's him. He's great in the blocking game, and he can still go out and carry the ball 10 to 12, maybe 15 times and have a couple receptions if you need him to. I just don't think he can probably do that for 17 games and be as effective as he was, 4 or 5 years ago.
How about Aaron Rodgers with McAfee earlier? And, he claims he's the best player in Titletown history, and then proceeds to tell Green Bay to hurry it up. I want to be a New York Jet. And also, like, Green Bay can wait until September 1st because that's the drop dead date that they have to pay him the 58 or lock that in as the roster bonus. So this could go on for a while.
It could. And the reality is, too, is Aaron could say, I don't want to play for the Jets. They could pull out on the trade, and then Green Bay has to cut him and eat all that money. So, Aaron does hold a lot of cards here. It's not like Green Bay can just say, we'll drag this out. We're going to make it as difficult for you as possible. I don't even know if it's feasible for Green Bay to cut Aaron Rodgers this year and still field like a functioning NFL team, just based upon how massive the cap hit would be for him if they cut him as opposed to trade him, because they would get some relief in that. So there's a lot of things working there. I think Aaron is probably the best player. I'm going to tell you this. I played against Brett. Now, he was older, but Aaron's the best quarterback, most versatile. The guy can do just about anything that I've ever played against. And Tom's a great player, and Tom's won a lot of titles. Tom's had, I think, more help than Aaron. If you look at his physical attributes, his ability to get through reads and progressions, how quick his release is, how accurate he is, and he's doing it in a climate that's not really designed to throw the football. I mean, I give the guy a ton of credit for what he's been able to do over the years. And I think he's had probably subpar coaching for the majority of his career and probably a good team around him, but there's been a lot of times where he hasn't had the requisite weapons. I think I don't know how many years he has left, but I would say for at least 2 and maybe a third for the New York Jets, it's going to be a pretty darn good situation. And I think Aaron's going to play really, really well.
I love this story. I love how he controlled his own narrative throughout and announced what he was going to do on Pat McAfee's show. I respect all that. Aaron Rodgers also seems like a very self-centered, selfish person to me, but I don't know him, personally. So I don't know that. I know his offensive linemen all love him. Seems like a lot of teammates really like him, and that speaks highly of him. Bobby, I guess my question is, have most great quarterbacks you've been around been selfish, but also been able to be a good teammate? Is there a little blend of both with some of the best guys at that position? Could you adequately describe a lot of them as selfish?
I don't know if I'd say selfish. I played with some pretty good ones, from Tony Romo to Matt Stafford to Tom Brady. I mean, those guys were all pretty darn good players, and they're all very unique. It comes with your personality. Tony and Matthew, I think, were pretty similar. They were very outgoing and wanted to be always involved with stuff on the team. And I got to Tom later in his career, where it's tough when you're close to 40 years old and most of your locker room's 22, 23 to really be actively engaged. And Tom tried to reach out, and he was always available and not standoffish in any way. And I don't think Aaron is either. Here's the thing. I always tell people this when they talk about different people and their personalities. Don't confuse someone who's like more introverted and quiet with someone who's like rude and self-centered. And, I've got to know Aaron probably not as well as anybody that played with him. He's good friends with a good friend of mine, AJ Hawk. I mean, they're teammates. He has him on McAfee every week. And Aaron would come in for his birthday. He was at his bachelor party. Like I was at a point where we played him a lot. I would see him maybe once or twice a year. And I've always really liked Aaron. I find him very witty. I find him charming. I don't necessarily think he enjoys a lot of attention. And everybody talks about how he wants to make this about himself. I really think he's a very introspective and kind of unique person to play football, where they're used to guys that are all about, me and want this and that. Like, Aaron's a unique dude. Like, he did the darkness thing. Like, I think that's something he would be doing whether or not he was playing football anyway. And so it's a very just kind of different way that he goes about it. And I always tell people, if you want to know what a guy's all about, talk to his teammates. They will tell you. And if they're less than glowing in their review of him and he's a really good player, that probably means the dude's not a very good guy, and they're just going to try to pull some punches. But guys have always been very positive about Aaron. They've talked about him in very high regard, how, he's a generous guy. He wants to be part of the team. He does a lot of stuff, like all these different things. I just think that he doesn't necessarily enjoy all of the media attention. He wants to do it his way. His his text to Adam Schefter was amazing. Like, I'm not going to feed you anything. I'm going to go on here and talk about it my way. Like, he's a guy that didn't want to get vaccinated. He's the quarterback and immunized and versus vaccinated and all this stuff. Like, he's just a different guy. And people have a hard time understanding that, because most football players you can put into a box and say, this is kind of what they are as a person. And then you get a couple guys who look at things a little bit differently and kind of view the world from a different lens. And that's okay if you're in another profession and nobody thinks anything of it. But when you're a football player or a professional athlete, whatever it is, like, there's a mold that you're supposed to fit. And Aaron just doesn't really fit that mold. And I think that bothers a lot of people. And people who really don't know him start like throwing out like selfish and, he's arrogant and just loves the attention. I mean, honestly, I think when Aaron's done playing, I don't think you'll hear from Aaron Rodgers really at all. I think he will kind of vanish into the abyss. I don't see him getting into the media. I think he'll probably hang out with some of his teammates, but he's not going to be somebody that you see popping up and doing different things because he loves the limelight. Because maybe that's it underneath it all, but that's not the guy that I've kind of come to know over the last 15 years.
Will he start a book club podcast like Andrew Luck when he's done playing? That may be the next step for Aaron Rodgers.
Honestly, I'm glad you brought that up. There's probably a very similar line between him and Andrew Luck. And, Andrew Luck is, a Stanford guy. He's a Cal guy, like a California Bay Area dude. Like, and Aaron grew up there. I mean, his path was very unique to even get to the NFL. And so Yeah, it wouldn't be surprising if he's talking about reading books and drinking the kombucha tea or whatever the heck he's doing, on trying all this East Asian medicine. I mean, he might be like Bruce Wayne with Christian Bale in the Dark Knight, the first one, where he's over there doing some craziness, trying to join the League of Shadows. Like, I mean, that I could see that being like Aaron Rodgers' path.
Batman Begins, great movie.
Yes.
Another guy who's quiet is Jordan Love. We haven't heard from him much at all since he was drafted to the Green Bay Packers. It's his show now. And for all of the comparisons that Rodgers has lived up to Brett Favre, even whenever this trade goes down, he will be compared to Brett Favre in the same manner for leaving Green Bay. Now Jordan Love has to pick up where Rodgers left off, and that's a high bar to meet. What do you make of Love and this entire saga since 2020 where he's been Rodgers' backup?
Well, I mean, if you remember correctly, like, we really didn't hear much from Aaron when Brett was the quarterback either. You know, I think that's by design. You know, personality-wise, like, nobody wants the loudmouth backup quarterback. Those guys understand it. They get it. And I think Aaron probably legitimately has a good relationship with Jordan Love. He was very complimentary of him. You know, when you talk about his skill set, and he's always said he didn't choose to be drafted here. Like, I'm not angry with him at all. But, you know, obviously there's going to be the weight of the world on his shoulders. It's hard to get 2 quarterbacks in a row right in the NFL. If Green Bay is able to get 3 right, I mean, they've got the holy water, they've got the grail. I mean, a horseshoe up their rear, whatever it is. Because you look at teams trying to transition off 1, they can't do that. They've had 2 Hall of Famers in a row, and if Jordan Love even makes a couple of Pro Bowls, for heaven's sake, you're talking about something that hadn't been seen since Montana to Young to Jeff Garcia, who we like crap on Jeff Garcia, but Jeff Garcia is a damn good quarterback who made multiple Pro Bowls with different teams. So like that's the type of transition that you would be talking about that would give you potentially close to 3 decades of relevance in the NFL, which that's almost unheard of without any type of setback.
Yeah, you're right. It's a great point. Bobby Carpenter with us. Switching gear, look at the draft and compare the quarterbacks from what we've seen in college. Is C.J. Stroud your number 1 in this draft? Do you lean Bryce Young? And where do you slot the height for Richardson versus what you've seen with your own eyes?
Here's the thing. I have Bryce Love, and I'm going to put, C.J. Stroud, like those 2 guys up there are right next to it. And a little bit
Bryce Young, yeah,
Bryce Young. I mean, yeah. Do you like, sherbet, or do you like chocolate ice cream? I mean, whatever. Like it comes down to a preference. Like, are you okay with a guy who's a little bit smaller, who's really accurate, who's been a winner, and maybe more athletic, or do you want more of a pure pocket passer that throws a really pretty ball, who maybe doesn't run quite as well as the other guy, but is bigger in frame? And that's all like individual risk tolerance on how you like to play it. And so there's that. Then I think there's a pretty significant drop between, Anthony Richardson and out of Kentucky, Will Levis. Like, both of those guys check all the physical boxes, man. They're big, they're pretty looking dudes, they're athletic, they can throw the ball really hard, they can throw it really far. Then you watch him on your game film, and you're like, gosh, this guy that I built on Madden just doesn't really seem to be putting it up like consistently like we want to. Yeah, he'll make a great play, but then over here it's like, well, what is he doing? Like, why are we making that decision? And so the decision-making process and the accuracy piece and the anticipation is something that's really hard to learn. Really, the only 2 guys I've seen improve upon it are Josh Allen up in Buffalo and then Jalen Hurts. And he's improved with what he's done in Philly. Those are kind of the 2 examples you have, because there haven't been a lot of guys that were those big physical runners with strong arms that all of a sudden then became pretty rhythmic passers. Now, their offense does stuff to help them, but they've done a good job in that short to mid-range passing game and improved upon that. So CJ or Bryce, like, whatever you want, man. I would lean probably a little more towards CJ, just because Bryce, I feel like he might be 1 hit away from starting to go down the line of Tua, where he's not a big dude.
Yes.
But they don't let you hit the quarterbacks as much anymore. So that changes a little bit. But Will Levis and Anthony Richardson, those 2 guys, I would definitely press pause, because if you think they're going to come in and probably play high-level football for you in year 1 or 2, I think you're probably getting ahead of your skis a little bit.
Will Anderson for you, the best defensive player in the draft?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the guy's explosive. He's well coached. He's been productive for multiple years. Bill Parcells, his famous thing, and then their manager, when they're building those great Giants teams in the 80s, their philosophy was, hey, draft really good players from big schools that have won a lot with good systems and good coaching, and then ask them to do the same thing in the NFL. And he checks those boxes, man. He plays for a good coach. He's been highly productive for multiple years. All the physical traits are there. The guy's a great human being, plays really hard. There's no character issues with all of that. So, and he's versatile. He can do a lot of stuff. So, to me, I mean, he's got a pretty darn high ceiling and a really high floor, which to have both of those in concert is a rarity, I think, when you're talking about drafting guys.
No doubt. And Richards, going back to the quarterback, I mean, that's a great description there. Lowest floor, but it may be a higher ceiling than any of the guys in the draft, just based on traits. Like that's the intrigue, I think, for a lot of scouts.
Oh.
When you go through the measurables at the combine, you see the high ceiling, but compared to the production we've seen in college, it's the lowest floor of the four.
People put together this Cam Newton comparison, and I keep going back to it. And I'll say it all day. Cam Newton was a really good NFL quarterback. He had some shortcomings, but that dude won a Heisman and drug an average Auburn team to a national championship. I mean, that's what they were. There weren't a ton of pros on there. It was him, Nick Fairley, and a handful of dudes, and he drugged them. So if Richardson was that good, he would have taken an average to above average Florida team. And heck, they should have at least won 10 or 11 games, but they were a far cry from that. So that's what you make that comparison, maybe in traits,
right?
But in like actual playing on the field, which is what matters, he really hasn't been there yet.
And I think Chad agrees with this. What we're saying, we're not saying he's not a top 10 pick. Teams move up and they reach far for those QBs. But I'm with you. I do think there's a big drop compared to the other two in conversation based on production. Who do you have winning in your bracket, by the way?
Oh, goodness. I have Bama and Kansas. I haven't clicked the final.
You have multiple brackets then is
yet.
what I'm getting.
No, I'm not doing multiple. I just haven't finished it yet. I've sat there and stared at it for a while as if that final pick is going to make the difference of me like having all my games right versus not. But I don't know. I think Kansas is playing pretty good ball. The thing is with Bill Self, like what's he going to be? And Bama's playing some nice ball too. So those are the two that I have making out of there. But going back to reaching,
yes.
I mean, NFL GMs, they're like my stinking 5-year-old trying to get like some little Debbies from like above the fridge on a stool on the edge. I mean, they're reaching with everything they have, hoping that they blindly find some sort of goodie up on top.
No doubt. And for those that think the Panthers don't know their quarterback, they're simply playing by the NFL's rule, quote unquote, guideline. Don't reveal who you like. And they did the ultimate by saying, hey, we're open for business. Give us a call. After trading DJ Moore and multiple first-round picks. And, yeah, give us a call. We're open for business. But we don't have a clue who we want. We just control the draft. Bobby Carpenter with us each and every week. You can check him out on SiriusXM Channel 84. Follow him on social at BCarp3. Always great to catch up, man. And, again, I always appreciate you whenever you join us.
Hey, my pleasure, gentlemen. You enjoy the rest of your Wednesday.
Yeah, enjoy Thursday and Friday with the madness. There's Bobby Carpenter. Again, joins us each Wednesday. Love having him on. Chad, we've got headlines on Brandon Miller coming up in about 15 minutes. But there's an update to the story that we discussed from Vermont where the school opted not to play in a tournament.
Girls basketball team opted not to play against a team with a transgender on the other team.
And there's an update on what the school board has done. That's next on Outkick 360.
Arizona gives Corbin Carroll, 22-year-old Corbin Carroll, he of all 115 Major League plate appearances, a 8-year, $111 million deal. All guaranteed. Club has, I think, a 9th-year option for $23 million or something like that. But and Bill, we were talking earlier. This is the fusion, or this is where old school baseball and sabermetrics meet, and I think they butt heads. Because in my mind, this is sabermetrician saying, okay, all of his other numbers, all of his underlying numbers from college and the minor leagues tell us that he's going to be this $100 million player. So we're going to save some money and sign him. Whereas the old school guys would be like, hey, you know what? Give me a year or two of production, and then we'll take care of you. I just think that there's I mean, obviously as a player, who wouldn't love it? But as a team, no chance. No chance, given the physical nature of the game, given the challenge of the schedule, and the human factor. I mean, how is he going to handle a slump in the big leagues? How's he going to handle the 14-day East Coast road trips? I mean, there's just so many things. I believe I mean, this is one of those guys that almost, I feel like Chipper Jones or Alex Rodriguez, when you see him, you know, he's a can't miss. And I believe he is, but I don't believe to the tune of $111 million. So, I mean, I'm curious, as a fan of a team, is this something that excites you or something that worries you?
It worries me a great deal because, as you're saying, and it doesn't matter to me what the GM was thinking, but basically he's saying, I know this kid's going to be great.
Right.
And if all of a sudden he levels off and is a 240 hitter who's stealing a couple bases and doesn't have major league power, you're stuck with $111 million over the next 8 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a very, I don't want to say very common, but you're seeing this over the last 5 years more than you've ever seen it in the history of the game combined. It just never happened. I mean, you know, guys like Soto and you know, Machado and all these young guys who got good deals young or bigger deals young. I don't know. I mean, listen, it's not my money. So as a fan, you shouldn't care. Although, is this a guy? I think the answer is yes. This is a centerpiece, right? This is a guy that you plan to have in the middle of your lineup, in the middle of your defense. Obviously, I'm assuming he's going to bring some stuff in the clubhouse as well. But this is a sign of modern baseball, for all it's worth, for whatever you want to take that for. It's a different game.
The other thing, Kurt, that you said, and you've said this in earlier podcasts, but this is the first time these kids are on fields where they're not the best player on the field.
Right.
Everybody else is as good as you.
Right.
Well,
this is a contract where the Diamondbacks are saying this kid will continue to be the best player on the field. Right. And I guess if you're looking for the 5-tool guy, this is it, right? I mean, you're talking about a 25 homer, 300 hitting, 400 on base percentage, 50 steal, Gold Glove caliber, you know. And if that's the player, which, you know, God bless him if he is, if that's the player, then it turns out to be a great deal.
Outkick 360 rolls on. An update to the story. So it was into February where the Mid-Vermont Christian School forfeited their tournament, their playoff basketball game, a middle school girls team, because they were playing against a team, or would have been playing against a team, of male to female transgender athlete. And they opted out. They announced why. I said it was a school board. It's the Vermont Principals Association made the announcement.
The VPA.
Yeah, the VPA, yeah.
Very powerful group.
They
organization.
made an announcement earlier this week where they say that the school's decision to do this, to protest the transgender athlete by forfeiting the game, was an act of discrimination towards the athlete's perceived gender. And they have been banned from postseason play that is state-sanctioned, if you can believe that. The VPA again reiterates its ongoing support of transgender student athletes is not only a part of building an inclusive community for each student to grow and thrive, but also as a clear expectation by Vermont state law in the Agency of Education Best Practices and the VPA policy regarding transgender student athletes. That from the official board there. And then, and good for her, the head of the school, Vicki Fogg, she doubles down on it in this. And now we see where we have the Mid-Vermont Christian School standing up for what they believe is right, which is simply biologically, it's a girls basketball team, and the opponent would have a biological male on the team, and they don't want to do that. The board is saying, yeah, no postseason play for you, statewide.
Hadn't I been to Vermont? This is a very Vermont decision by the Vermont Principals Association to do this. I would even venture to guess that the Vermont Principals Association, if they could, would love to take this a step further and not have Christian schools in their organization, because this was a Christian school decision to do this. And it's obviously, to me, it's a logical decision not to want to have your girls team compete against biological males in a competition, especially where you're close contact and things get physical, and it could be a safety concern for your girls team also. So I think it was the right decision by Vermont Christian School. I believe it's the wrong decision by the Vermont Principals Association. I also think it's a very, very Vermont decision to make. And I think if they had their way, they probably wouldn't have that Christian school involved in anything in Vermont.
I mean, but honestly, we've gone from the discussion at the college level to, again, reiterate, the discussion is at the middle school level here.
Yeah.
That is just dumb. I mean, it's, again, Chad, we've said this multiple times. The vast majority of people believe the right thing is biological male compete against biological male, biological female competes against biological female, and there's really no rebuttal to that.
It's a pretty,
other than a statement saying about inclusion.
It's a pretty logical stance, and it's also funny when they want to talk about inclusion and say we're all about inclusion and inclusivity.
Right.
We're so much about inclusion that you're banned.
Right.
We want you out now.
Yeah.
You know that
we're
inclusive.
We include those who think the same way we do.
Exactly. If you think the same way we do, and you're fine with your girls competing against biological males, then we want to be inclusive to you. But if you don't believe in that, and you respectfully do not want to participate in a competition that involves that, you're out. We're exclusive against you, but we're inclusive with everyone else who thinks and feels the exact same ways that we do. Ridiculous.
Yes, more on this.
Another ridiculous story.
Outkick.com is where you can find it. Chad, your biggest upset in the tournament is which team?
I didn't have any huge upsets this year. I said yesterday it would be UNC Asheville if I had to pick a big one, pulling off the upset over UCLA. I think the lowest seed I have winning, Hutton, is a 12 seed, but I have 3 of them winning. I have 3 of the 4 12 seeds winning in this tournament.
My biggest is Furman. I'm riding with the Paladins. And beyond that, I have Memphis making a nice run. I think there'll be a storyline, but it's Furman in round 1 for me advancing.
It's pretty chalky for me once you get to the Sweet 16 so far. Furman, Virginia has shown that they have the capability of losing to a team they're not supposed to lose to. So that certainly could happen.
Yes. Hey, and Furman, if they continue on my bracket, would meet up against Alabama, and they're going to see security, personal security, in the arena for Brandon Miller. We've got details on that next.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into Outkick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll 'em, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper-rational. They looked at the data, and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, the bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the final hour is here, Wednesday edition, Outkick 360. 6th and Peabody, our location. Coming up in 20 minutes, we'll have the founder and CEO of On3, Shannon Terry, will be in with us along with Grant Firking. A lot to discuss in name, image, likeness. Shannon, sent word, I don't know, a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. He believes federal legislation is going to happen with the overall governing bodies across college sports, referring to what happens on the Hill to determine, quote-unquote, guidelines instead of the NCAA. Looking forward to the discussion in 20 minutes.
And wouldn't the NCAA and every college program out there love that?
Yes.
If there were federal regulations on this where everyone knew the rule book.
Yep. And, federally, we chatted last year about this. Some are pointing to, state to state, which is what we're having. And that includes the conversation we'll have in a minute on Texas A&M and what they're pointing to, which is state law. Shannon and Grant coming up. Aaron Rodgers earlier today said, hey, I'm a longtime Green Bay Packer, longest tenured Packer. I want to be playing for the New York Jets. Let's hurry this along. For those who missed it, he pointed to the compensation being the big holdup. He said he's made both teams were aware of this late last week, going back to Trey Wingo's report earlier this week. Chad, going into the NCAA tournament, and we saw this, that the national media is about to, maybe not for the first time, because I think there have been some national writers that were covering Alabama. But for the first time, Bama's going to be inundated with the Brandon Miller storyline, right?
There's a lot of columns about the despicable nature of all of this with, the conflicted thoughts while you watch Alabama cruise through this bracket.
Well, I mean, he's at the scene setter, the story you can read at Outkick, Miller I'm referring to. He's at the scene setter in Birmingham. And at the presser, it's very noticeable a personal security guard for him. And that was a big topic earlier today. I mean, the guy is certainly in the right line of work. Could also go to the WWE, right? Maybe a heavyweight for the UFC. But they have added this security for Miller. And that's on top of, keep in mind what we were referring to earlier this week, a PR specialist and an attorney that's with the team as well on behalf of the university. This is only getting started because I don't think Bama's losing anytime soon. Chad and I both have them winning the tournament. And at some point, doesn't this become a distraction?
Well, I mean, if it's not been a distraction, I'll keep going back to this. They don't care. I mean, this is not affecting them on the court. Like a lot, I shouldn't say it. I think deep down it affects Nate Oates, but I don't think it's affected Brandon Miller's play yet. I don't think it's affected this Bama team from what I've seen. There's no tangible signs of this impacting their play in any negative way. They've been great. They've been the best team in the country before the murder happened. They've been the best team in the country after the murder happened. I don't see any big line of demarcation in Bama's play, given all the controversy and everything that's gone on. So, look, I picked Bama right here in my bracket to win it all for that very reason. I don't think this is going to be any different. I want to point out, though, Nate Oates' quote here when talking about it. He said, some people that can sit behind fake email addresses, who knows if they're real or not. I've seen some of the things that he's been getting. I wouldn't want that, and no one would want that for their son. I treat my players like my sons. I don't have a son. I have 3 daughters, I put myself in his parents' shoes. Did you put yourself in the shoes of the woman who died? Of the parents of them? If you have 3 daughters? Because it's her dad that says it's disgusting to think he didn't at least serve a suspension.
Right.
And all this, that he wasn't affected at all.
Yeah, no accountability.
There's one person that died in this whole story, right? Tragically. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, I find that I believe him. We had Dane Bradshaw in studio when he says, I treat my guys like sons, but I'm thinking, then after that you say, but I have 3 daughters. So that didn't affect you enough to say, hey, maybe 5 to 10 game suspension and then play on. I just don't think that it's the same level of, certainly on my end or any, most media that I know, the coverage is different if he served any suspension at all, as opposed to nothing. And I think Greg Byrne even said when we were surprised about the new information about the text message he received, that was new information. I'm thinking,
they didn't act on it.
There's your out. Someone we had on recently said, well, the argument is that's like suspending your kid 2 months after they did something. And I'm thinking, people get punished all the time when the public knows about it, before, after the fact, because the public knows about it, and because of, It's just been handled
It's
very
also-
poorly by Alabama. But again, I've got Alabama winning it all. Why?
Yeah.
Because they're the best basketball team in America.
Well,
and I don't think this affects them.
The next storyline, I think, will be on how Bama will try to tell people this guy's off limits. Stop asking him questions, because they were doing that at the SEC tournament with the security. Outkick was there and approached the officer in the Alabama locker room when it was noticed, and he was asked if he's Tuscaloosa police or if he was private security, and a member of the athletic department hopped in and said, "You're not to be interviewing him." And if they're going to continue to do that, this will continue to be a storyline.
To be fair, that's one thing Alabama actually can do, is say, you're not going to interview our security personnel.
I know, but
they're not available for. I'm guessing it's Glenn Gilbo that's there. That's smart of him to go up and ask. I would have asked the question too. He's being a good reporter, but this is one time where I will say Alabama's SID guy or girl is absolutely within their rights to say, don't interview our support personnel. They're not available for interview during this tournament. Now, what they're going to try to do also that we've seen in the past, it happened after multiple games, they're not going to be answering questions about anything other than the game.
Well,
that's going to be
Oates
the instruction.
continues to answer questions.
Yeah.
Miller
I'm
doesn't.
saying the players.
Yeah, but
Miller made the one statement at the SEC tournament and said, I'm not going to speak anymore on it.
Right. But that doesn't mean they won't be inundated with questions. Right? And that's going to follow them throughout the tournament. And again, we think they're going all the way to Houston in all this. Chad, interesting.
I don't think it's going to reach the point, though, of that Live Tour press conference. If you remember how awkward it was when Lee Westwood and everyone, every question, Ian Poulter, where they were asked the same question about the Saudi money, and it was just eventually them kind of smiling uncomfortably and not answering any questions, and just silence with question after question. I don't think we're going to reach that point with this, though, because enough people will ask non-controversy related questions about the team where they'll keep answering.
Yeah, I mean, at some point Miller will be asked about his game-winning shot. You know,
they're
which
gonna,
will happen too.
Yeah, they're going to ask basketball questions too. I don't think it'll get to that point.
Chris Beard answered the questions with Ole Miss in the press conference that introduced him down in Oxford, and he thanked his fiancée for setting the truth on the domestic incident that got him fired at the University of Texas. And he was emotional. He went through the details of what the last couple months have been like. He referenced Ole Miss for the search that they did and how he was honest and open with the questions that they asked. And he faced several questions about, how this looks and how he's going to go into recruitment and discuss this and how he's going to be able to answer it versus point to ongoing litigation or anything else that might be going on. Chad, here's the deal. Dude was hired 2 months after he was fired with cause. This is not going to be an issue when it goes into recruiting. This is not going to be an issue maybe beyond today with the presser for Ole Miss and their reaction to it.
No, and he also was very careful not to really apologize for any action of his own.
No, he thanked his fiancée.
He did apologize for, I know this negatively impacted a lot of people around me, and I'm sorry for that.
Right.
The whole situation in Texas and what went down. He also said that they're not speaking on those days around that. They're not speaking on that night. They're not going to get into details. They've made an agreement. They're not going to talk about anything with that. Because I want to say he was asked a question, something like, well, did you choke her?
Because that was when the last time that we have heard, the comments made on that night and around that day.
We're not going to talk about it. I'm thinking, well, that's probably the stance I would take too. I mean, if she's not going to talk about it anymore either, and you're not, I think that's probably the right way to go.
Yeah, and he says, I understand some of the questions coming. I'm very comfortable and confident in the truth in his introduction there. From Chris Beard to Will Wade. Immediate hired at McNeese State, and then he's suspended 5 games.
I love this. I love this story so much. Will Wade, who, basically is a bagman. Like, I feel like, that you have the stories of the bagmen. Like, Will Wade's an actual bagman that became a head coach, right? He was a manager at FRA here in Nashville, and he worked his way up, basically being a bagman, to become a head coach, and a successful one. Had a good, I think, he had a good tenure at UT Chattanooga.
He won.
He had a good 1 year at VCU. He was in the NCAA tournament 3 of 5 years at LSU. He made a strong-ass offer, and he got caught on a wiretap making that strong-ass offer.
Yep.
And he's out at LSU, and he gets hired by McNeese State. And the day after the press conference, announcement is he will serve a 5-game suspension to start his tenure here at McNeese State. I love
In compliance with NCAA rules.
I love every part of this story, and I just laugh because I'm thinking, well, we've been asking for years, Hutton, when is McNeese going to get serious about basketball? And now we have our answer.
I love, too.
McNeese is all in on winning and winning big.
I love, too, that that Will Wade has to submit a weekly report on recruiting activities, which will include phone calls, text, etc. Yeah, okay. Look forward to McNeese State making that.
Here are the transcripts of all of my phone conversations with all of the McNeese State recruits.
Yeah. I mean, the NCAA couldn't keep him from coaching when this was all going down. LSU gave him the middle finger when they were winning.
Yeah.
And, that McNeese State is going to somehow get a weekly report from Will Wade. The bag man for Will Wade will be writing up the weekly report and state it and probably copy and paste it from week 1.
This is going to be it's the Southwest Conference, I want to say, McNeese State's maybe? Southland?
Yeah, I think so.
This will be a super team that he will assemble in that conference.
Under one season for Will Wade there.
Oh, he'll be there multiple seasons, I think. I don't think Will Wade – what's crazy is Chris Beard, with what he was accused of, gets a job immediately in a Power 5 school. But I still think with Will Wade, there's enough – stink on him with all of this that it's going to take a couple of years. But I bet he goes to 2 or 3 NCAA tournaments with McNeese in his time there before he gets back to a better job.
He's not permitted to have any off-campus recruiting-related activities from the date of the hire until July 31st this year. He shall reduce official visits by 4 visits during the academic year, and he's banned from all recruiting conversations between September and October.
I mean, you must really want to coach. Right? Or you just really don't care. If you're Will Wade, you're like, I'll sign whatever.
He just doesn't have the same rush, man.
I'm going to do whatever I want. Like, I know the compliance department at McNeese State, and it's not overly staffed, so I'm going to continue doing exactly what the hell I want at McNeese State. It's one of the two. You're either that hard up to coach that you're going to actually do all these things, or you're Will Wade and you're saying, yeah, I'll sign whatever contract you put in front of me, and I'm going to go get every player I want, however I want him at McNeese State, and you're going to love it because we're going to win.
They will do that.
Yeah.
And if you want to win, you'll hire Will Wade at some level. Hit us up with your thoughts, Outkick 360. Shaka Smart's winning again. Marquette. Chad, you have Marquette in the Final Four?
I've got him in the Final Four, losing to Bama in the Final Four.
What do you think allowed him to turn things quickly at Marquette that he wasn't getting done at Texas?
He gave a really long answer and a good one about the difference of being at a basketball-first school versus Texas. He did a good job, too. He said, I'm never going to speak ill of anyone at Texas because it doesn't want to make it about that. And he referenced the fact that he was on Billy Donovan's staff at Florida, and Billy Donovan won 2 national championships at a quote-unquote football school. So he says it can be done. We've seen it happen before, and he's got a ton of respect for Billy Donovan and anyone that can make it work. It just wasn't going to work to that level for him at Texas, even though he was bringing in 5-star prospects. I think the difference is there are just some guys that are such energy bombs at all time. And I think Shaka Smart is one of those. They also feed off the energy of their institution. Everything I've read about the president at Marquette, his athletic director, they're on the floor slapping the hardwood at the Big East tournament with him. They are all so aligned behind men's basketball as their money sport, and he is the top dog on that campus.
And they care about it.
And he has the resources, and they've got a solid fan base for that level and that size school. I just think it's all those factors that I don't think he was feeling the vibe as much at Texas.
Well,
being such a football-first school.
John Fanta covers the Big East and was at the tournament and was at the presser, and he's a part of the Field of 68. Here is John with Chris Mack, who also weighs in on the perception of what we've seen from Shaka Smart at Texas to now what he's accomplishing at Marquette.
After winning the Big East tournament Saturday night, Shaka Smart was asked about his president, Mike Lovell, who actually has battled through cancer and cut down the nets at the Garden Saturday night. He was the guy who had the last cut of the scissors, waved the net around the crowd. You know, sarcoma survivor, really a powerful story, powerful image. And after the game in the press conference, Smart gets asked about the administration at Marquette, and he goes, "You know why I fit here? I fit here because the people who run this place aren't cyborgs. You know, they're not robots they're actual humans." Like, Mac, how big is that for a coach? You know, the difference between having an AD or a suit that's just simply a suit versus actually having someone who is a human.
A lot of those guys are human regardless. John, I think the biggest problem becomes when there's not alignment. You know, when people have ulterior motives, you know, within the university. You know, when you don't have the same alignment with president, with associate ADs, with your AD, and there's different messaging and, you know, there's different agendas. And obviously Shaka doesn't have that. You know, he's very, very fortunate. And, you know, you would think that that's how it would be everywhere, but it's not. And, you know, the ones that have it, you can tell, and that's why they're very comfortable in their own skin. They run their program extremely well. And, you know, look at Shaka now. Look at him a few years ago, and that's not a dig on Texas, but it's just one of those things where he feels a lot more comfortable where he's at now.
Chad, that tournament was competitive. It was awesome.
It always is.
The top of that tournament at Madison Square Garden is legit, and Marquette comes out on top. I like the fact you have them go. I've got them in the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
But in this year, there's no reason why Marquette can't win a national championship this year in this college basketball landscape. With as crazy as all the upsets we've seen this year,
it's going to be, well, it's one of those where every year it's like nothing will surprise you. But
not anymore.
It does feel like this isn't going to be a blue blood type year in the Final Four, and it's going to be quite possibly a first-time national champion. Not that Marquette would be that. They've won a national title. But, yeah, it's going to be fun. And I love that Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden.
Coming up, Shannon Terry, Grant Firking, On 3 is in the house. A lot to discuss, including federal legislation for name, image, likeness. Is that coming? And Texas A&M and what they're doing to defy NCAA, not rules, guidelines. That's next on Outkick 360.
Suggestions.
Latest edition of the Trey Wallace Podcast, powered by Outkick.com. Happy to be joined by Auburn head basketball coach Bruce Pearl. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great, Trey. How are you doing?
I am good. Thanks for taking the time. I know things are busy. You're getting prepared for the NCAA tournament, and what a wild time. Walk me through yesterday, what that was like on Selection Sunday, just getting that announcement, finding out, okay, we're in the NCAA tournament again, and the players' reactions to it.
Yeah, Trey, it never gets old. You know, that one shining moment really means something. You know what? And it's hard to get in. I mean, there are so many good teams that had great records that just did not get in. I think the body of work is obviously, to me, your last games are as important as your first games. And they're judging teams based on the entire season, which worked out really well for us because we played 6 teams in the non-conference that were in the NCAA tournament and beat 3 of them. We played 3 true road games in the non-conference against Power 5 schools. No other Power 5 school, did that. We won some good ones, but even the ones we lost, like at Texas A&M or at Tennessee or at Alabama, we're all really close. And so you got rewarded for not getting blown out, for going on the road, and you really get rewarded for winning, but you get rewarded for being in the games too. So anyways, the kids were excited, and obviously, the 8-9 game is going to be a tough game because Iowa's a really good team.
Hey, how much goes into that? When you guys are scheduling opponents and you look at the way that college basketball is now, they want you to go out there and they want you to take those chances. When it comes to the strength of schedule and down the road and how it helps out teams come March, when they're vying for a tournament, how much time and preparation do you put in to something like that to making sure, okay, we need to get at least 2 or 3. We try in the non-conference, but you know how tough the SEC is, but it just feels that strength of schedule is such a big component.
It is. I mean, I think, and they've been consistent with that. And so you got to put your team at risk. You got to take them on the road. You got to play good teams on neutral sites. And then, you know, we've always tried to schedule like mid-majors that could win their league, that we're going to have, you know, really good seasons that had good culture. It's dangerous because what happens is if you get beat by one of them, it also can devastate your math. But it's all about risk reward, and you got to have enough confidence in your team. But I do think the strength of schedule. I think the committee has consistently rewarded people that have played tough schedules.
You know, a lot of people find this topic interesting. It's like the turnaround between, okay, you in a conference tournament, then you're getting ready for the NCAA tournament. It's so quick. I mean, if you're in the play-in game, like Mississippi State, they're you know, they got to be in Dayton. They got to be in Dayton, and they got to be playing, you know, by tomorrow night or Tuesday night when that happens. When you look at it overall, how does the turnaround work for you? How quick are you in the film room and prepared?
Right away. You're in the film room right away. But here's what it is. Like we play in the SEC, we play Saturday and Tuesday sometimes. Now, the only difference is, you know, we know before, you know, you find out on Sunday night that who you're playing Tuesday. So, you know, Mississippi State probably had an idea who the last, you know, 3 or 4 teams in might be and pick any one of them. So maybe you put your staff on a couple of different opponents. You start doing some preliminary stuff. But you know what? This time of the year, Trey, we got in what we got in. We are who we are. And then it's just a matter of looking the opponent and plugging in, you know, what aspects of your offensive.
From 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine, Hutton and Withrow with you. Outkick 360 across the Outkick Network. Chad in studio with us from On3. Shannon Terry, founder and CEO of On3. And Grant Firkin, good friend of the show, VFL, and let me get this right, the Athlete Network Development Director. I would refer to both of these guys as, if you need something done, you give one of these two guys a call.
They're like the sports business gurus of college sports. I think both of them. And one's done it a little bit longer, you know, with all due respect to Shannon. Right. I don't want to put Grant on that pedestal just quite yet. We got to knock him down a couple pegs, but both guys do a good job in the business of college sports.
Guys, welcome. Good to see you.
Always great to be here.
Grant, how are you, man?
Phenomenal, man.
How are you liking
Good to be in Nashville.
Yeah, that was good to say. Welcome to Nashville.
I was going to say, I've welcomed you guys to Knoxville many times. It's good to be here with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Give us the landscape over the last month or so, Shannon, since you were last in. We've seen Miami agree to, you know, some self-imposed whatever from the NCAA. It wasn't much. It was a slap on the wrist. But they're not going after the booster. They're not going after the player. They can't do that, right? So they're going after the university. Texas A&M, meanwhile, they're going at NIL a different direction than what maybe we're seeing. And what can they actually do about it if A&M is pointing to state law?
Yeah, let's hit A&M first. I spent, a few weeks ago, flew down, spent the day, met with a lot of people at the school, and it's really interesting. I think, the 12th man was set up in, I think, the 80s.
12th man fund, right?
12th man fund's in the 80s, and it's a really unique model, and there's a lot of reasons I actually like it, and I think it's actually perfectly suited for NIL. I think they're they are in a lot of ways a collective, to borrow the term, that is efficiently run, set up the right way, and has been doing business for a couple decades or many decades. So it gives them an advantage, and I think they're ahead of the game. I really don't think the NCAA has any claim against them. Their governance, their structured, the way they're set up. I think it's by the letter of the law, and I think they know it, and I don't think there's any chance that they're going to back down. And by the way, their phone, no joke, it's blowing up because a lot of other schools / collectives are really looking into how they're set up.
And so, Chad, what? Let me clarify that, because what they're doing, they're tying in tickets without tying in tickets for the donation, right? They're doing that purchase separately. So they're saying they're abiding by the laws and guidelines that are set forward through name, image, likeness.
I think that's
Am I getting that right?
I think that's the only curveball in their whole setup is that you get ticket points.
Right.
So the ticket points go through that where it doesn't happen with the other collectives. But the athletic department has to petition, the board of governors for all funds. It's not at the athletic director's discretion. And then what I like about it from the sake of the whole business enterprise is that the 12th Man Fund solves for probably one of the greatest problems in the donor world of collectives right now, which is the tax problem. Because so when you go give donation to the 12th Fund, you're getting your proper tax deduction, and in addition to that, you're getting those booster points, which are really important.
Which in other schools, when you're giving to the collective, you're not getting that tax benefit, which is very unique.
It's a subscription, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and Grant, you've done a lot of traveling to different schools and educating people there, athletes there, coaches, talking with people. Where is Texas A&M in terms of where they are with NIL as opposed to a lot of other places around the country? Obviously, the setup at Tennessee really well. Where does A&M rank?
Yeah, they're right at the top. And I think if you look at schools across the country, you've seen athletic departments take vastly different approaches to their message to the athletes on NIL, their message to the fan base on NIL, their relationship with the collective. A&M's right there with being an aggressor on that side, right? I mean, they've pushed the limits. They're out there in all the headlines, and people are going to follow them. You've seen schools that are on the much more conservative side that are very distant in that relationship between collective and development fund and athletic department and collective. And, it's one of those things that is used as a recruiting tool now. When an athlete comes in and sees that an athletic department, their coaches, their AD are all in on NIL, they know that there's likely going to be greater opportunities presented there.
Shannon Terry, Grant Firkin in studio with us from On3 Sports. Shannon, so what's the NCAA doing?
Yeah, so
what are they trying to do now?
That's the story right now. The last since Baker has come aboard, it's very obvious that NIL is the linchpin of his platform, and it's happening. And there's a hard push for federal legislation. And
you tweeted this earlier.
Yeah, I mean it's really simple to see what's happening, and it's not about being on a side. It's about, first of all, is federal legislation necessary, or should the NCAA, the conferences, and the member schools actually just freaking do their job? Okay, the answer is they should just do their job. But let's just say, what does federal legislation mean? Well, the irony of the platform is around consumer protection, protecting the athlete. Well, the athlete honestly doesn't need to be protected. The athlete, the coaches, and everyone just needs to know what to do. So I am a proponent to the nth degree of athlete first for all the reasons. 9% of all expenses goes into scholarships, aid, and grant. That is an incredibly low percentage of your expenses go into talent. It's ridiculous. It is now a time for the athlete to benefit from all of this rights money that has come into the sport, and federal legislation will absolutely penalize the athlete in NIL. It is empirically, factually correct, and they're trying to stop it.
And I feel like, Shannon, everyone wants just someone to tell them the rules, like you're saying. And now you have these sort of solo warriors that are challenging the NCAA to get a ruling on something and kind of doing the Lord's work of what needs to be done to clarify things. John Ruiz is going after the NCAA on the term booster and how he's called a booster, right? So there's something coming there. You've got A&M challenging on working with a part of the school that can give away tickets on what they're doing that we've discussed. Do you see it that way, where it's going to take kind of this death by 1,000 cuts of different schools taking on a war of their own to try to come up with overall legislation or rules on this?
Well, I don't think there's going to be that many wars because I don't think the NCAA is going to enforce that much. And so, the way things are set up now, who knows what they can and can't enforce. So I don't think that's the case. I think the first order of business is to protect the money, and that's obviously what's happening right now. And I think the word's not being said, but I think collectives are if I'm running a collective right now, I'm worried about this whole setup. And if I'm an athlete, and I'm telling you, all the NIL number stuff is kind of a big BS. The real money is happening in the world of the collectives, and it's happening with the elites that are doing big brand deals, and then there's a whole lot of nickels scattered. And by my estimation, we are at least 2, 3, 4, 5 years away before the big group licensing deals come in from the brands that kind of get dispersed. So you take that collective money away, you are essentially cutting the whole world of NIL value that's going to be dispersed straight to the athlete down significantly.
Grant, do you think we'll have a player union?
I think it might be coming at some point. Like Shannon said, I mean, those things are years down the road. It's hard to, put a finger on it. But, I think as you've seen the NIL ecosystem evolve in the last 18, 19 months, I think it's closer to getting to that than it was at its onset in July of 21.
And Shannon, we talked about this, but I think it's because the players are going to realize their piece versus the university's piece versus whatever. And that's when the money actually becomes an issue for what they could get paid versus what they are getting paid.
100%. That's when you start taking that away, and if it does get taken away, and I don't think the reality is this. And I want to go on. I want to make a statement that I've made many times. The majority of athletes get more through their education, their aid, their benefits, their perks than they would ever be worth from an NIL perspective. So if you take a roster, just rounding, 60% of those kids never need to even think about the word NIL other than just some side hustles with local sponsors, whatever. Okay, so they're more than taken care of. But the reality is the elites that are driving the game, the ones that we're watching to see, that money's in jeopardy because only a few of those, only a very, very small few are the Arch Mannings, the Calebs, the Livy Dunns, that actually appeal to a national brand, that have some type of activation and ROI. And so I think, in a perfect world from the NCAA's perspective or the school's perspective, they're good with that pocket, getting those big brand deals. That's just probably more opportunity for them. It's this whole middle tier that really starts, I think, disrupting the financial models.
So going athlete first and thinking that way right now, let's say that athletes do unionize. Is that what's best for the athlete, is to be considered an employee of the university, or is something different, or what's going on now, but more ability to make money on the side, what's best?
I'll touch on that. Being an employee would be a train wreck. Okay, first of all, you've got the whole issue around, I'm getting a $60,000 scholarship plus meal plus shoes plus all these things from Vanderbilt. How am I going to pay for that? How am I going to pay for the tax on that? So being an employee without some kind of federal, tax exempt status, now that becomes income. That's one. The other impact is if employment happens, Title IX and you're going to see club sports are going to be the new norm. And so it's going to eliminate so many sports and so many opportunities. It could really be the death of women's sports to a degree. So I don't think that is the issue. That is the route at all.
Grant, are players happy when you chat with them about how the model is set up now and the start to what is the new college model in athletics?
I think it's I think the neat thing about what NIL has done, and I think I was vocal about this from the onset, is that the marketplace would always work itself out. You know, I don't think you ever had a bunch of guys in there that were being over realistic of what they thought they were actually going to make, right? When you go into the locker room and everyone wants to say headlines of, you know, NIL's destroying locker rooms and, you know, that whole argument. You know, being in a locker room, I have never seen, you know, a fight break out because of an NIL deal, right?
Yeah.
I mean, guys know who's producing and they're getting taken care of, you know, proportionally for that. And, you know, and honestly, if there is a deal that, you know, there's no value being, you know, taken out of it, I mean, those guys likely aren't there the next year. And, you know, I just think that kids are being given opportunities through NIL. And, you know, we're in a whole lot better spot right now than we were just because of the way it's worked itself out to this point.
I don't think anything could be, you know, 100% positive all the time.
Yeah.
So, Grant, the Jaden Rashada situation being one, if there is an issue out there you've seen from the student-athlete perspective, and you talk to so many of them, is it a certain school overpromised something, or I thought I was getting into one thing with a sponsor or a collective, and it turned out to be another? What are some of those issues that you've seen or encountered?
Well, look, I'm a big advocate of staying about all the NIL discussions, negotiations, agreements before you step foot on campus. There are so many variables out there and unknowns of a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid as they're going through this recruitment. Then you throw the parents in the mix. You throw the 7-on-7 coach in the mix. I mean, all these things are up in the air, and just throw it into a crazy scenario like we just saw with Rashada. You know, I would much rather see a kid get on campus, show his value, produce, you know, prove to everyone that he's a 5-star kid that can go to class on time, that, you know, is well received in the locker room, you know, is as good as he's made out to be, and then go and make some money. When you have a guy who, you know, has all these headlines about him that walks into the locker room and then, you know, like in the Rashada, you know, case, blows up in front of him and he ends up not even going to that school and then basically is, you know, back, you know, from the start, you know, that's not a great look for the kid. And look, in his situation, if that deal wasn't out there and all those headlines, he could have gone to any other school and got a lot better deal and scenario than what he's getting right now.
After year one.
Absolutely.
But can I say, we also live in a practical world.
Yeah.
Okay. That's when I'm going to drive, I'm going to leave here and go home, and I'm going to see a speed limit sign, and I'm going to make a choice not to drive 65 or 70. You know, because the practical, I'm going to try to get away from or away from traffic. The reality is, fixing this, I don't think is that difficult. To be honest with you, I don't think, and while I do believe you can set it up easily where athletes aren't compensated till they're enrolled on campus, which I think is critical. I don't think you can eliminate what I'm going to be worth when I get there. That's invariably going to be discussed, talked about, and there's going to be chicanery involved. I think the simple solution is really not that difficult, and I'm going to just use football, for example. First of all states, you know, have to operate the same way. All conferences have to operate the same way. I think that the Power 5 schools need to set up some baseline salary cap number that they can't go over that will be deployed for football. Okay, and it would be Vanderbilt's choice whether they wanted to compete at the max as you know, Texas would and Alabama would. What does that number look like? I don't think it's hard to come up with what that number is. You know, it's somewhere around overall, you know, conference or you know, sport revenue. You know, if a head coach is making $10 million a year, it's not unreasonable to say that football collective has 7.5 or 10 to deploy. That's number one. You come up with that number, it's up to the school. Listen, some teams in the NFL don't participate at the same as others as it relates to spending. It doesn't have to be that way in college either. Let the school then deploy that money any way they deem fit. Okay?
But the difference would be Clemson's not getting the same payment per year that Tennessee's getting just based on conference affiliation. So that they
so
could
donor
pay
money is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, and so keep the number reasonable. You know, keep it where it's reasonable.
Is it difficult to assume that the SEC and Big Ten want to keep it reasonable for the other three?
Probably not, but I think that's a workaround. And and I think the key, and then I think the next key, which is the most important one, is you've got to set up a TPA, some form of a third party administrator that would manage and calculate the disbursements of funds, and are they up and up? And if a school participates outside that TPA, you're yanked. You're in big trouble. And if an athlete takes money that's not disclosed in that, they're ineligible. Hire a third-party enforcement group, to manage and audit this whole process, take the power, out of the NCAA's hands, and go from there. I don't think the money has to be so egregious that it rules out the conferences that don't make as much as the SEC.
As long as the number is obtainable for anyone outside of the Big Ten or SEC, right?
Correct.
Yeah, but you mentioned the NFL.
The max number, yes.
Yeah, the owners can participate or not in the NFL, but they're getting the same television rights money
across the board.
Kansas City or
How far
Buffalo.
off are the Big Ten and the SEC rights numbers, though?
Pretty substantial right now.
Well, they won't be long.
Okay. Well, maybe it's just a Power 3 then.
I think
is that what we're headed to?
Yeah, I think it is.
Instead of the Power 5, because the Pac-12, it may be a while.
I mean, there's already there's obviously discussions about those schools.
So yeah, that deal with Ion TV is not going to be as profitable as what Big Ten and SEC
That'll
has.
meet expectations.
So NCAA tournament, very profitable. And I watch an event like this and think about basketball, and I think this is what NIL's created for. You've got someone not hiding behind a helmet. Their face is there. It's March Madness. I think of Harold Arsenault. I think of names of the past that guys just emerge in this tournament and could profit from this. What do you guys think? Grant, I'll start with you on it in terms of college basketball impact with NIL guys and the money they could make.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, basketball is one of those sports to where obviously your roster is a lot smaller, so your ability to go out and monetize on your brand, the availability of that is huge. And, the stage of March Madness and, the buy-in across America from, crazy college sports fans is there. And I think you've seen a lot of brands go out there and start these national campaigns. Like Shannon mentioned, there's going to be more of those year after year that go in and, select, 10 highly marketable athletes within a sport or, within a group of sports to go and, take on and endorse their brands, because there's big ROI in that when it's an elite athlete with a large following that a lot of fans across America know. And I think you'll see a lot of companies buy into the NIL space throughout the NCAA tournament. We've seen a few of them, start out with 10 or 15 athletes from the male and female side, and I think you'll see that throughout the tournament. But with the TV deals, every game being nationally televised, and just the audience that buys into it, I think it's a massive opportunity for athletes, but also brands to get into the space.
Shannon, I'm fascinated by that aspect. Final thing, because if go to an arena for the tournament, there are drapes hanging over any sponsorship in there.
Yep.
And with the NIL space and what players could do, I'm intrigued where it goes. How much do you actually talk hoops compared to football in your meetings?
A lot, but here's the problem. Let's start naming college basketball players. You go first. Where do we get in this room where we can't name another one? The problem. The problem is that the marquee names, there's just not that many of them, and
a lot of them are first-year players.
Yeah.
Right? The marquee names are your lottery picks that are freshmen. So they don't have a lot of time to establish a brand with a certain program.
But
either way.
In this space, though, it allows Oscar Tshiebwe to go back to Kentucky.
That's what's beautiful
about
the
draft. And then you follow him because you learned about him in the tournament.
Do you think that was a brand deal, or do you think that was a roster value deal tied to a collective of the school, though? I don't think Nissan was sitting there
it had
saying,
something to do with where they played their preseason tournament, right? Or wherever they went?
Well, I think to your point, it's a collective deal.
It's a collective deal is my point.
Yeah.
That's really the most interesting part of NIL today, because the whole brand side is going to take time to develop. You ask about the tournament.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a learning exercise with this tournament, because I think there may be one or two players from this tournament that has some like Olympics type teeth where they can carry, some brands forward for a few months after the tournament. But the reality is brands would have to be front loaded to participate with the athletes during the tournament as all this hype is happening to actually maximize an ROI. So I think a lot of brands, a lot of CMOs, a lot of people in space are going to look at this year, look at the athletes to prepare themselves to deploy next year on not the collective side. I have not heard, and Grant may know a lot, he knows a lot more of the deals than I do. I have not heard of a lot of deals that are preemptively loaded for the tournament that's going to tag with from a national brand perspective. I haven't heard of many.
And Chad, you mentioned it too. A lot of your marquee basketball players, 18, 19 years old, one and dones, lottery pick freshmen.
Yep.
If you talk to a lot of CMOs out there that have wanted to get into the space that may have represented a slew of professional players, the vetting and maturity level that they want their brand attached to with a player.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I mean, that's a huge deal. And you see that a lot more with football just because you have a more mature player, that's been around the block a time or two, that's gone through it. In basketball, your marquee players are young, and, there's that immaturity risk that they don't want associated with their brand.
That's a great point.
On3 is the best of college sports and recruiting. On3.com is where you can check out the work of Grant Firking and CEO Shannon Terry. Always great to have you guys in. Welcome anytime.
Thank you, guys.
Grab a picture after this.
I love that hat mixed with the hoodie next to each other. Good contrast of the logos.
We're just the little guys.
I don't know if they planned that or not.
It was not
planned.
It's
a good contrast.
Shannon, you're never allowed to say that, okay?
We are the little guys,
yeah.
for sure. 100%.
We'll wrap up the show coming up.
Shannon's going to buy this distillery once we walk out here next.
He's already
what's
owns
coming
it.
next. Yep.
This is the Outkick Network.
Zero. What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation, and pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on.
Welcome into Outkick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
So the higher that number can be, the better you are with the committee. It's really that simple.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
He's got incredible taste in which media figures he listens to.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose.
The scary thing, Tommy, is in the history of this government, I've never seen them give anything back that they've taken.
Oh no, they never do.
And they won't.
Why are we going through Melania's goods? Don't make Brittany Griner out to be some type freedom fighter. Shouldn't there be a little bit of common sense? Let's roll them, big boy. What do you got?
They want to find someone to be the face of domestic terrorism, and they want it to be a right-wing Trump supporter. Don't let them entrap you into doing something dumb. But they were hyper-rational. They looked at the data, and they said it makes no sense for me to submit to this COVID shot mandate.
Get the shot or you can't go to your brother's wedding. Get the shot or you can't go to your daughter's graduation. Get the shot or else.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, a bold taste of a Southern legend.
Chad, tonight, Nevada and Arizona State, the 11 seeds. True TV. The Google searches for True TV in March, hilarious. The spike in searches
You just
every
had
year.
light come on you for the first time. That's new. This is like the old. I get old vibes in the studio right now
We
with
have,
that light that would come across us during the day. And they knocked that off. Didn't know that was still possible. Crazy.
We have officially reached
you look angelic, but it's just crazy to see.
Officially reached the extra hour of daylight. That's
amazing.
It's official.
We're back.
Jalen Carter was back in front of scouts and teams today. Mark Schlabach reports, though, he shows up to the pro day for Georgia 9 pounds heavier than what he weighed in at the combine in Indy, and that he could not finish position drills due to breathing heavily and cramping up. Declined to run a 40. Not good.
Not a great look when you can't finish your pro day. And to go with, everything else going on with Jalen Carter, not terrific.
So if there was
for
any
your draft
discussion
stock.
about, Will Anderson, Jalen Carter,
that discussion should be over.
I think so.
I've seen enough now to know enough that discussion should be over.
Juju Smith-Schuster signing with the Patriots. They're making that official. It is a 3-year contract, $33 million. It's identical to what Jacoby Myers received in Las Vegas, but they tacked on, New England did, an extra $1 million in guaranteed money to Juju. So he's not going back to Kansas City. The pool of wide receivers is interesting because you got a lot of guys who are good, not great, and it's a watered-down market right now. So that's a good deal for him and for Jacoby Myers to get it done while we wait on guys like McCole Hardeman and others to determine where they're going to end up or end back with. The other report was that all these receivers are calling up Patrick Mahomes, asking for him to lobby to get them in KC. I would too.
Just when you thought the Jets were going to be the story of the AFC East, the Patriots fight back with that Juju Smith-Schuster deal.
Chad, the Jets will be the story every day as long as Aaron Rodgers wants them to be. Every day.
I mean,
time to just pay Green Bay what they're offering. Let's
get this thing moving, Packers. I know I played for you for years, but come on, I'm ready to go, and you're holding us up.
Back at it tomorrow, starting at 3 p.m. Eastern. Outkick 360.
Dave, you shut that door.